What's up, guys? Hey. Hello. So we're live, and right off the bat, I would like to introduce. I have a guest today. This is R.M. Lewis. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? Say hi?
I should unmute myself. Hi.
Probably. And who are you?
So I'm RM Lewis. I'm a nurse, but I'm also a writer. So here to talk about writing.
What do you write?
Some dark fantasy. I actually dabble in a couple of things, but I seem to always gravitate back to dark fantasy, fantasy. I can't really find myself writing much else, even though I try a
The
lot.
good stuff. Hey, you
Yeah.
got a type. That's fine. Cool. So, today, uh, RM has procured my services as a writer's coach, and we're going to be talking about what?
Did you cut off or did you stop
I said
talking?
what?
Oh. Today we'll be chatting about my character Klaus because don't really know what I'm doing with him anymore. He's just kind of there doing things that probably shouldn't be doing. So we
Hmm.
need to figure him out.
His
Because that
arc is a little meek, I think.
meek, it's more like it goes up and then that's like it.
Does it
Just
go? Does it go up?
I I like to think it does, but I'm biased. It probably just like goes like that and that's it.
Yeah. Well, either way, we're gonna be working on his some characterization, but primarily his narrative arc, right?
Yeah.
Like his personality is pretty established. But
Yeah.
before we get into that, first, a real quick check. Chat, is our audio good? Do we sound? Does she sound okay? Do I sound okay? Everything good in comparison? Um, Audio's good. Okay, perfect, sweet. So we did it right beforehand. Our tardiness was worth it. So a few caveats about how this is going to work. I'm not going to be addressing my chat to the extent that I usually would today. Not until the end. Once we get through with our in-depth discussion on Klaus and on the story, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the story, so you guys have some context, and we're gonna introduce Klaus to you and everything. But primarily, we're gonna be focused on working on that narrative. And at the end, if people have questions or comments, or if somebody wants to tell her Klaus sucks or I love Klaus, that'll be the time to do it. We won't be actively watching the chat until then, though. So for the duration of this, I have my channel points turned off. There won't be any rhyme times. There won't be any haikus or limericks today. Think of this entire thing as one big Cayenne character concept. I do have some mods who are active in the chat who can answer questions, and if anyone wants to know more about my coaching or editing business, exclamation point Arch Edits will give you a link and a little bit of info. So, with that said, RM, let's talk about your story. What is it called?
So right now it's called The Phoenix, though it's had many names before this.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing it for the last, oh my God, 6 years. Started
Six
it in
years.
only 6 years. Started it in February of 2014. And it's completely become totally different every single time I do edits to it. So it's been about 10 different stories at this point, but I think we finally worked out the kinks and found the story that I have been trying to tell over the last 6 years of my life. It's basically hero's journey. We have a very, average MC. She's, just your nice person, has some troubles. And she gets thrown into this crazy kind of world that she didn't realize was all around her. And she becomes a key part in helping to save the world. And the impact character used to be my main character, but she took a back seat because she's a little hard to like. And
That's
she
an
kind of,
understatement.
big understatement. Um, she's very introverted, not very nice. She makes the hard decisions. She comes off as someone who doesn't really have a conscience, but she does. She just makes the harder decisions that some people just wouldn't make. And she's the one who's guiding, who's mentoring our main character. So we have two very different personalities coming together. And they have to go through the world trying to make this stone that our antagonist is trying to make so he can resurrect this world that he used to live in, and take over the world.
And
So
what stone is that?
the Philosopher's Stone. I
Hmm.
feel like it's not very original, but I've had no other name for it, so that's the name it
No,
shall
no,
be
no.
called
If
for
you
now.
know, run with it. Run with it. If that's what it is, if
Um,
that's the concept, you might as well embrace it.
that's exactly what it is. So we're calling it that. So they need to make this Philosopher's Stone. Both of them are trying to make it. It's a race to see who can make it first, and the antagonist, of course, wants to destroy the world and be the ruler of the world. And the main character and my impact character want to stop him and use the stone to essentially kill him. And yeah,
Okay.
it's about their journey finding these five pieces.
So that's a lot about Sage, your main character, and Mora, your impact character. So who the hell is Klaus?
So Klaus is the third. So our antagonist is Adrian, and he has two younger brothers, Julian and Klaus. Klaus is the youngest brother, and we actually have a POV of him. We don't have a POV of the other two brothers. And I chose him because he's much different from his brothers. He, Adrian, and so more backstory. There was a war ages ago that destroyed their world, and Adrian wants to resurrect their world after feeling as though he was defeated and betrayed his world by letting his world be destroyed. So all three brothers were, they were part of his army and they fought to help save their world. But at the end of it, Klaus didn't understand what they were fighting for anymore, and he decided to leave his brothers, and he left their world to seek refuge elsewhere and to start a life separate from his brothers because he didn't feel as though they were fighting for the right thing anymore. So we pick up where he is decades later. He's living in the mundane. He's living in Seattle. He has completely stripped himself of all of his powers. He no longer wants to be associated with the magical world. He's dating a human. Human does not know that he is part of this magical world. Just thinks that he's another human. And he's just living his life as a defense lawyer in Seattle. Hasn't communicated with his brothers whatsoever, and never wants any part of them ever again.
Okay.
Never wants to fight ever again.
So is he a pacifist?
Yes, in a sense, yes,
So
yes.
let me drill in on that a little bit. So there's different degrees of pacifism. There's the I refuse to even defend myself, I will not throw a punch pacifism. There's the I'll shoot your kneecaps off if it saves a life, but I won't kill you. There's the Batman I don't have to save you pacifist. And then I mean what kind of pacifist would you say he is?
So I feel this is something that I haven't really, in the 6 years that I've been writing him, have quite figured out yet. But as I've written my final draft, who am I kidding? As I've written my rough draft of the manuscript, he really doesn't fight anyone. The only person that he would ever raise a hand to is his brother, and he never does. There are no real opportunities for him to exude any sort of violence. So I don't really
Okay.
know. I feel like he would throw a punch. Nah, you know what? He probably wouldn't. I think it depends on who's throwing the punch. He
So
wouldn't punch his brother because he knows his brother can punch him back harder.
well that's not pacifism, that's something else.
It's fear. um, But I think if his loved ones, like his girlfriend Emily was in trouble, he would definitely, come to her aid no matter what the length of
Hmm.
that is.
But would
So,
he, do you think, draw a line at killing?
yes, he definitely wouldn't kill. He doesn't wanna kill. That's for certain. Doesn't
Not
wanna kill
even,
anyone. Would
not even his brothers.
No, no, especially not his brother. He's too scared to do that.
Well, again, that's different. Fear
Yeah,
is very different from taking a stand. It's kind of the opposite.
I know. So I don't think he definitely doesn't believe in killing, and that stems from, his previous past of, fighting in this war, of killing a lot of people that he felt as though he didn't have to kill, that shouldn't have to die because of the fight that they were in.
Okay.
So I definitely can't see him. No, I can't see him kill. I mean, there is a scene later on in the book where he does have some sort of, like, violence,
Right.
but
And that's
he
going to be
doesn't
very
kill
important.
them.
We're
Right, he
definitely going to
doesn't
be
kill
circling that topic a few times today.
them. Woohoo.
Um, Something that immediately comes to mind that I want to bring up, and I realize we're still kind of hashing out like the background and the structure of it all, but something that you've not really shown in his character, but I think is a great unmarked opportunity, is that he is a former soldier.
Yeah, I really don't, considering
So,
it's such a big thing with all the other characters, and I feel like
mhm.
I show it, I definitely don't show it with
So
him.
opportunities for that, you can have like maybe an old limp that he's never shaken off. You can have,
Mm,
physical scars and marks, but you can also show it in his bearing. Loud
mm,
noises maybe that might disturb him or cause, some sort of physical reaction, or a
mhm,
certain measure of stiff posture. Maybe maybe an immediate respect for people in positions of legitimate authority. Um, think like a real war veteran.
yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't help that Klaus isn't he hundreds of years old? Or did you?
Yeah,
So
they're kind
yeah.
of old.
So think like the most uh, aged World War II and Vietnam veterans you've ever heard of.
Mm,
Klaus might not look like them, but he should absolutely show at least some of those characteristics,
true.
because that will
Good.
speak volumes. You don't need to tell people, yeah, he's an ex soldier who's running away from war. You can show in very small details exactly who he is, just through like that posture, the old limp, maybe the respect he shows to veterans, to
Mm,
fallen,
mm.
to Mora, or in fact, even to his brother. Not that brother, the other brother.
Yeah. The other one.
The one who, frankly, did distinguish himself with some honor during the war, did he not?
He did.
He did.
Yeah,
So, in a
yeah.
way, that should be a theme that comes up, you
True.
know?
Solid point.
So, that's one thing we can do, I think, right off the bat, right from his very first chapter, to really spice up Klaus a little bit, to show that he's more than just a stale, meek lawyer out of his element. Don't get me wrong, the Mr. Bilbo type of character is great, but
I already have one of
you
those.
already have that with Sage. Exactly.
Yeah.
So something else I think we should talk about is his arc. So with Sage,
Mm,
you have an arc where she starts out as Mr. Bilbo, as this
mm.
helpless, kind of useless participant caught up in events that she really has no business being in, but whose heart and tenacity become her greatest assets.
Right.
She doesn't become a warrior. She doesn't even really get good at doing anything.
No.
She's just too stubborn and too sage to just roll over and die, and really all she
Yeah.
needs to do to win in this case is to survive. And she just doesn't
I
have it
think
in her not to.
Right. Yeah, literally her only job is to survive.
Yeah, and be present for these things. And granted, that's not to say it's easy, but so that's kind of her arc. We have a character who follows the Bilbo arc. She inspires heroism. She showcases true heroism by getting into situations she cannot handle and facing them anyway. You have Mora, whose arc is kind of about opening up her heart and, frankly, a true redemption arc about
Yeah, I was gonna say.
recognizing the wrongs that she has done and continues to do, and reaching a point where she can finally say, I won't do it anymore.
Hmm.
I will do the right thing. And those are kind of two different forms of the same redemption arc. The sage, who's always running away until she finally decides not to run away, and the dark anti-hero who finally makes a heroic sacrifice. So you've said you want a redemption arc for Klaus. And I think that's a good idea. I personally think it fits. I do want to point out, though, that it doesn't have to be. That it is an option, since you have two distinct redemption arcs already, that the third could be a failed redemption. I don't think that's best, but I want to address it so we at least, go over the possibility and see. Maybe you'll like it. Sometimes the things that we... You what? I'm sorry?
I said I have kind of been playing with that idea.
I think that's kind of what you have now, honestly. And I think that's part of the problem, is that it just doesn't work.
Well, it doesn't work because I just kind of gave up. I was like, I just need to get him to the end.
I mean...
Let me just have a series of events happen and just get him to the last chapter.
What we're working with here is dark fantasy. It is distinctly dark fantasy, but it is a heroic story. You have a story where the protagonist is the main character, making her a hero. You have a story that is meant to inspire people to be like Sage, right? Isn't that kind of the point of it all, is be like Sage?
Yeah, pretty much.
Be brave, face that thing that you think you can't possibly beat, and maybe you'll beat it. Or for people more bitter and angry, be like Mora. Face what you've done. Own up to it and make it right. So in that trend, you want people who mesh with Klaus to look at Klaus and think, I need to be like Klaus. Because it seems like in this heroic story, it's one of the themes, one of the purposes in this story is to inspire.
Yeah.
So you need your POV characters to inspire something. Now, with Klaus, you already have a very bold take on a hero. You have a hero who is a pacifist. Yeah, maybe he'll kick the crap out of somebody who has it coming if he's forced to. But you have a man who, frankly, courageously said, I won't kill anymore. Even when culturally he's being pushed to it, socially he's being encouraged to it, and frankly, his loved one is being dangled in front of him and he's being told, Klaus, we'll make it easy for you. Just kill, and then we won't kill her. And you have a hero who is being tested in his convictions. So that is an admirable quality, and that is something you big time want to play up. The big motif around Klaus is conviction. Because that's not really an element for Mora. We don't see her convictions tested. We see her resolve get pushed a little. But even then, there's no question that Mora's going to fight. Mora's a fighter. She's going to fight the bad guys. Sage, it's not about... I mean, you have one chapter in the church where you question her conviction, where you say, you could walk away, but Sage even then says, this isn't a test of my conviction. You're giving me a choice of damning the whole fucking world or do what you want me to do. What do you think I'm going to do? Well, guess I hate living, so...
So just
she straight up says, I have no choice. Sage never had a choice, and therefore her arc isn't about conviction.
No.
Which leaves us Klaus.
Yeah.
So, a big thing we need to do in his narrative is push his convictions. Now, the beauty of it is, in most of the first 2/3 of your novel, Klaus is paired up with the most sadistic creature, second only maybe to Wolverines.
Talking about Adrian or Everine?
I'm talking about Julian.
Oh my god, I love him so much.
He is a sadistic piece of work.
Oh, but he's so much fun.
So that's beautiful, because here you have a character who is Klaus's opposite. He is cruel. He is violent. He's crude. He's dishonorable. So, and frankly, he's obtuse. Yes, he's malevolent, but he's too stupid to really think outside the box. He's a bully.
Yeah.
So here you have a character who would literally enjoy making Klaus do terrible things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you have them paired up and often alone together throughout much of the early story. So you have a veritable garden full of opportunities to test Klaus's conviction. To have Julian try to make Klaus kill somebody and ultimately have him repeatedly refuse and suffer for it. That's the other thing. You need Klaus to suffer. If you're going to test his convictions, and ultimately you want his convictions to stand, and it seems like you do, correct me if I'm wrong, you got to make him suffer for it.
He is my suffering character.
So, something you can do, spitballing just like some basic ideas that you could run with or not, just to inspire other things you could do. You could have Julian punish him by actually doing something to Emily. And I don't mean killing her.
Debating that.
I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I dangle her as a threat, and well, not to be threatened, and and I never do anything. Like Julian and Adrian are always like, think of Emily, blah blah blah. And Emily's chilling in her apartment in Seattle, so.
Right. So something you can have happen is you can have Klaus defy Julian, or Adrian for that, but probably Julian, honestly. Because Klaus's climax, the moment of his narrative peak point, is not the same point as Sage and Mora. His climax is in the drowned city.
Which is nearly the end. His is much later. It's definitely much later than everyone else's.
Oh, no, theirs is after. No, theirs is later than his. The peak point for Mora is when you know what happens. The peak point for Sage is the peak point of the entire book. It's when she faces Adrian the final time.
Yeah.
So comparatively,
you're right. His is the first one.
Right. Klaus is hell. His is probably a fifth of the book earlier than the rest of them.
Yeah, true.
So,
True.
For people to fully understand, we have Klaus, who is stuck with his brothers throughout. They end up in at a point where Julian is going to straight up murder the main character. And Klaus, who has done nothing but stand aside, who's said, I want to help, but my hands are tied. Throughout the story, this is the point where Klaus attacks his brother. And you kind of downplayed it in the current draft, and we're going to work on that. But this is the moment where Klaus needs to straight up not just transcend his convictions, but epitomize them in an act of still defying. He chooses to be the kind of pacifist who won't kill, but who also will not allow someone to kill when he has the power to stop them. This is the point where his character is at its peak. He makes a choice to save Sage's life, and that makes the ultimate villain of Klaus's story arc not Adrian at all, but Julian. So, that being the case, in improving Klaus's arc, we're going to improve Julian's. And I know how terrible you hate writing Julian.
Oh my god, I hate it.
So, something you can do is early on foreshadow it by having Julian, try to get Klaus to hurt someone, or maybe even have Julian hurting someone and Klaus be like, stop. And then Julian stopping and being like, excuse me? And try to punish Klaus by making him now do it. You can have Klaus ultimately refuse, and then Julian say, well, then I'll do it, unless you're going to stop me, brother.
Mm-hmm.
And Klaus doesn't stop him, and Julian hurts someone. And now you have mirrored his ultimate climax with Sage.
Mm-hmm.
It's, in a sense, if he were the hero of the entire story, as he's the hero of his arc, this would be his inmost cave. Do you remember that term from the hero's journey?
Mm-hmm.
His inmost cave, his first inmost cave, would be when he has the opportunity to step up and save someone, and he backs down. He makes the choice not to engage in violence, not to fight his brothers, not to do what some part of him says he should do. And he probably wants to. He probably feels a surge of anger towards his brother. Mm-hmm. And you want that. You want to play up. And again, it comes back to his military background. Klaus is a soldier. Adrian was a soldier. Klaus fears Adrian, but he also respects Adrian because, frankly, Adrian doesn't murder hookers.
No.
Adrian doesn't...
Julian does, but Adrian doesn't.
Adrian doesn't get off on hurting people. He hurts people because the means, or the ends justify the means. He hurts people who stand in his way. He's not out to promote suffering. I mean, sure, he wants mystics to pay. He wants a lot of people to pay, but he doesn't just want to murder every mystic ever. He wants them to feel what he felt. He wants...
Well, he only goes after people he feels is deserving of that kind of...
He wants a new order, in essence.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which, the common folk, if they all die, he loses anyway. He needs people to be, I don't want to say subjugated, but frankly subjugated, because we've got an aspiring tyrant. Someone who says, I used to have power, I should have that power again and rule with it because no one can stop me. And because these people had their chance, and look at this society around us that they've built. They walk all over us. They had their chance to prove that their way was better, and here we are living in slums. Second-class citizens at best. Adrian is not a good guy, but Adrian is an honorable guy. He is a monarch personality type, a tyrant. He wants to be the leader, and to be the leader, you need people to lead. Julian is a sadist. Julian wants to hurt people, and he likes hurting people. And even Adrian probably, I would imagine, so Adrian is a family man. I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, he feels that what Julian does is distasteful.
Yes.
But he doesn't want to know, because he's not going to hurt his brother. He's a family man. He's the politician who pays to have the half-brothers murdered hookers swept under the carpet. Because it's embarrassing, it's awkward, it's nasty.
Right?
Okay, that's kind of the vibe I've been getting. Just correct me if I'm wrong in this. So, in a sense, you want to play up that side of Klaus's connection to Adrian. You want... I mean, obviously, you still want the fear there, but you also want respect. You want Klaus to understand that a world ruled by Adrian is not the end of the world. It's a bad world, but it's not the end. Because otherwise, if Klaus thought that would really cause everyone to suffer that much, honestly, I think I could see, if he wouldn't defy Adrian, I could see him hurting himself. Because he's not going to... You have Emily as his glowing North Star.
Right.
If the world he creates with Adrian blots out that North Star, what was the point? He needs to feel like it's bad. I don't want this to happen, but he needs to be able to justify it too in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because Klaus is a character who needs to be able, it's important to him that he be able to sleep with himself at night. This is a man who walked away from war. His conscience is a major element, a major facet of his character.
Right.
So, with Adrian, you want Klaus to be afraid of the brother, but you also want Klaus to, if not respect, then at least understand where his brother is coming from and what his brother's vision is. You could even have, in some of those scenes where Klaus and Sage face one another with their opposing ideals, you could even have him say, believe me, there's far worse than Adrian, or something to the effects of, I'm not the bad guy here. You want a bad guy, Julian's the bad guy. You want a man who's trying to justify his actions. Right. Especially considering Sage has a stronger moral compass than he does. You know? So that's something to play up. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's not that she has a stronger moral compass, but she's more easily, like, she will easily follow that compass than
she's
Klaus.
strong-willed.
Klaus knows what's right. Klaus knows right from wrong. He knows everything his brother is doing is wrong while he understands it. But he just taking that next step and actually acting on what he should be doing is where he kind of falls flat. Whereas Sage is like, oh, that's wrong, and I'm full
in a
speed
sense,
ahead.
A major theme, much like his conviction, another theme you're playing with Klaus is perception and self-delusion. Frankly, Klaus consistently refuses to see things the way they are, because to do so is to acknowledge that he is sacrificing his convictions. And to him, those convictions are up here, above everything else. So he needs, at any given moment, he needs to fully believe that what he is doing is the best he can do in his situation. Now, that could mean I'm doing this for Emily. I have to keep Emily safe.
Well, I think that's the biggest thread that he always goes back to is, I'm doing this for Emily. I'm not going against Adrian or Julian, because if I do, then Emily's going to get hurt, or I'm just here making sure that things don't get too out of hand. But he actually doesn't draw that line in this, like, he doesn't draw that line in the sand for himself that says, if my brothers get to this point, I'm going to do something. He's always just hoping that the world kind of just has their plans fall, or that he's hoping that Sage and Mora will do the job for him that he feels as though he can't do for himself, or doesn't want to do for himself, or realize that he has to do for himself at this time. So I do think I bring that along. But one thing he doesn't put that line in the sand that says, if it gets to this point, then I'm going to have to step in, and this is exactly what I'm going to have to. He doesn't have a plan. Well, that's the thing. He doesn't have a plan.
If you use that scene with Julian, in a sense, you can have him try to put a line in the sand to say, I won't do this, or I won't let you do this. And that's all the more reason for Julian to say, oh, really? And to test the line in the sand and prove there's no line in the sand. You'll do whatever I want you to.
There was that one scene, the first scene with Everine, where, so after Everine leaves, I'm so excited to write her more. When she leaves, that the three brothers are kind of conversing, and Klaus is like, this is insane, this is crazy, like, I'm not doing this, like, you've brought the wrong person here. What makes you think, like, I left you guys decades ago and I don't have any powers, like, I'm literally nothing to you. Why did you bring me here to do this? I'm not doing it. And Adrian just throws, or maybe it's Julian. I don't remember who says what. I know there are a lot of instances where Julian is just like, oh, and what about Emily? Or, make some snarky remark about her.
I think in the chapter it's Adrian, and I think we should switch that to Julian.
To Julian.
I think consistently the threat to Emily, especially with Julian now acting as the primary villain to Klaus's story, it's important that since his goal is to save and protect Emily,
Mm.
that his villain be vanquished. In
Because
essence,
I mean,
when Julian is killed, Emily is safe, at least mostly, because
right.
Adrian will do what he has to, but by that point, he no longer needs. He doesn't
You
need
don't need
to.
her leave
Yeah,
stuff.
and frankly, at that point, since Klaus is turning on Adrian from that point forward anyway,
Mm.
there's really, I mean, there's no harm narratively in just saying, okay, the only one who was ever going to hurt Emily was Julian.
I mean, Julian is the one who showed up to his apartment in the first
Mm-hmm.
place. He's the one that came all the way out there, and he's the one that really has that sadistic way to him. I always used Adrian as the person that was really the threat. Like I made it
Mm-hmm.
seem like, but I never wrote it as he was the one. He was never the one actually acting on any of
I think
that. It was always Julian who.
I think we can rearrange that feeling a little bit. You want him
Mhm.
afraid of Adrian, but you also want him not afraid of Adrian's sadism, which is what he is now. Adrian's not a sadist. You want him afraid of Adrian in a more powerful sense, bigger picture.
Right. Right.
So what I would do is so how I'm imagining this playing out, scene of events or series of events, is Adrian told Julian, "Bring me Klaus," and Julian says, "How?" Or maybe Julian doesn't ask how. Maybe Adrian just says, "I don't care how. Just get Klaus here." He doesn't want to know. And then it's Julian who's like, "Is this Emily? She's pretty." You know, the the serial killer mentality and approach.
Right.
And
Right.
consistently, whenever someone threatens Emily, it should be Julian going forward. And
Mhm.
you can even have, at some point, Adrian step in and maybe be like, or no, he wouldn't stop Julian. He wouldn't interfere. He would really quick shift things away from that ugly topic. He
Right.
wouldn't. He might, in a way, he good cop, bad cops with Julian. In a way,
So I get
it's more
so
like
I
good, shitty cop and scary cop.
Right. Yeah. I guess my everything kind of comes back to a very central root, the main root is, and I think this like stops me from writing a lot of things with Klaus, is I don't really know
Why he's here?
why he brought him back.
Yes, and
Why he's even here.
that's the next thing I wanted to talk about because you kind of touched on that a
Awesome.
little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So, I've been thinking about that. And ultimately, I think you're right. There is no way around that Adrian needs a reason for wanting Klaus here.
Right.
That's just how it has to be.
Yeah.
Which means I think there's also no way around something about Klaus's character is going to have to shift to make that work.
I know.
So I've been brainstorming some ideas. One thing that had occurred to me
Mm.
is his magic. So what you have at present is that Klaus's magic was stripped from him, correct?
Right.
So something that occurred to me is that actually kind of creates a minor plot hole.
I know.
Because if his magic can be stripped, so can Adrian's.
So, yeah, essentially anyone's can be,
Right.
so.
So something you could do instead of that to even further play up the pacifist angle is to have Klaus, in essence, do it to himself. Something akin to, like, not necessarily a monastic vow, but on par with it. You know, he can put his magic away and vow he will never use it again because his magic is all destruction. The dragon's magic does not create life, it doesn't heal, it doesn't help, it burns, it blows things up, it destroys.
Mm.
And in that way, he can be useful. And something you can do is have him tell Adrian right up front, "I'm not doing it," and Adrian be like, "Well, I don't care. I don't need you to use your magic, silly and foolhardy as that is. What I actually need is," and I'll get to what that is in a moment. But conversely, after his climax, when he is taking part in the final everything, where you really need him to step in, you now have a door for him to be useful. Though I don't think that's necessary, honestly. I don't think he needs to use his magic at any point, really. Because, again, where his climax is should not be facing Adrian. It should be facing Julian. And given the scenario, you really don't need him to turn into a dragon or breathe fire to save Sage from Julian. Honestly, he could put Julian in a heckin' full Nelson and it's done. Don't do that. For the love of God, don't do that. I'm just saying he could. But having that magic, honestly, even if that's not why Adrian brings him back, it does resolve your plot hole. I don't think you can have his magic stripped from him without introducing a plot hole.
Well, so I can introduce. That's easy enough. It's literally 2 sentences that I need to change.
Well, sort of. It would be something that he will be tempted. Every time Julian is tormenting him, he should think of what he should feel the temptation to rip Julian's arms from their sockets and beat him to death with them, and actively swallow those urges down. Because that will, number one, reinforce to your readers Klaus is a pacifist, and it's not easy. Because in this light, you want his pacifism to be a positive quality, right? It's something that people should admire about him. So you need him to be tested on that. You need him to think, I could stop this. I would like to. It's so tempting to. And you need him ultimately to struggle against that and defeat it every time. That will also help just with making him a more interesting character to read. But as far as Adrian is concerned, I don't think that magic would be enough for Adrian to call him. If Adrian needed a dragon,
essentially it's the same magic. They're the 3 brothers. They're the 3 dragons. So he just has Julian. He has himself. So
my thought there is that each of them might have a particular skill. You said that they were all soldiers, and I presume, seeing as they're the heckin' Wilhelm brothers, that they were pretty legendary in their time in the war.
Yes.
So you have Adrian, who is a ferocious beast, presumably the warrior. One of the most skilled martial abysmals of his generation.
He's definitely a leader. That's where his great fighter, all that jazz. But he's definitely the leader, the commander, that.
I would play that up. Give each of them like a unique, specific skill that was distinctly theirs. So that each of the 3 brothers had something that they shone for. Julian, you've already played up that he's a bloodhound, a tracker.
Yeah.
You have here a guy who, I would play that up even further. Say that he can taste the air, think like a lizard tasting the air with their tongue, like a snake. Imagine if Julian can do that, and he can literally tell when Mora is in the shadows creeping on him. Imagine in the desert, when everybody else is just doing whatever in their camp, if Julian is kind of like, someone's here. We have a guest, or if he can just sense that presence, you can really play up the idea that Julian has a supernaturally powerful tracker ability, like a bloodhound. And in that sense, and in fact, I feel like we talked about that before too. I feel like that was something that you actually had toyed the idea with Julian.
I feel like it. Not in this draft, but in like a previous one, I
think that rings a bell.
Played with that a little bit.
So if you go with that, and you go with, and you've mentioned that Adrian is humongous in his dragon form, that he is far larger than he should be.
Right.
That alone already seems like a supernatural bolstering. So what was Klaus's? You just need Klaus to have a special personalized ability that is something they could use in stalking either Mora or locating these pieces.
I feel like he was definitely more of, the strategist. I could definitely see him being the
An
sneaky
empath?
one. Yeah, just, being the sneaky one, making the plans,
He
devising
needs
the
he needs
the
Klaus's mind. I like that.
yeah,
So what you
yeah.
have in so what you're going to want to do with Klaus, honestly, you're going to hate this and I know you're not going to do it, but I'm
Oh,
going to say it
no, I
anyway.
already feel
You're
it.
probably going to want to do some research and read Sun Tzu's Art of War.
Oh god, I hate research.
I know. I feel you there. But it will help you. Honestly, that'll help you with Mora too. She's not the best strategist, but Art of
No.
War. Art of War is the how-to guide for strategy. Frankly, it is. I don't know if it's ancient. I don't know if that's the right term for it. It's old. It is an old textbook that is. It discusses the way of thinking so that you can, in essence, conquer the minds through your mind of your opponents. It discusses strategies that work in everyday life, in debate, in uh, competition, in war. It applies to every aspect of life. So, given that Klaus is a lawyer, it's brilliant. Something you could also do to showcase that early on. I know you're not going to want to do this, but you could show Klaus actually in court, utterly eviscerating an opponent in a case to
That would
show his
require
strategy.
so much more research.
It really would. And it would be hard, but if you sell it right, that could be a great lead in to showing that Klaus still has it.
Mhm.
But what you could do, and what I would do, if you want to play up the supernatural facet to it, like Julian's supernatural senses and Adrian's supernatural size and ferocity, is maybe consider something to the effects of maybe not full mind reading, but Klaus having the ability to actually perceive. There's a lot of ways you could do it. You could do something precognitive, like more just seeing what they're going to do, seeing
Mhm.
actions before, like I don't want to say future sight because that implies a little too far, but I mean more like kind of picking up the threads of how things are going to play out, seeing the. Uh, Here's an example that I think you'll like:
Well, I mean,
Strange in Infinity War,
ah,
something like that.
I just watched that movie the other day.
Imagine that. I mean, as you saw, it's not all powerful. Seeing all of the options doesn't really guarantee any are going to be an option that you like.
No. Well, I
But
guess he would be very perceptive. I can see him being able to read people very easily and to
mhm,
pick up on things that probably many people wouldn't pick up on, like little tiny, ticks or just even like the subtle movement of someone, and he would know that that's because of, anxiety or
mhm.
they're
you
planning to do something or he can kind of.
you probably want to hone that though to a at least slightly super. You want a supernatural edge
Oh,
to
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So something you could do so that it's not obviously you don't want to go full Doctor Strange where he can just see as far into the future as he wants of 2,465 different possibilities. Maybe something
Mhm.
more closed in, like he can see a branch with a person based on a person's actions. He can see what they're going to do as kind of in real time as it's happening, or he can look at or something you could do. I've seen this before is where he can touch things and get the sense of why they're laid out the way they are, sort of like a detective. In a You haven't seen Hannibal, have you? Have you seen any movies or shows where the detective kind of like can look around the crime scene and put the whole thing together as they're
Red
seeing it?
Red Dragon, that movie.
Yep, yep. That's what
Yeah.
Hannibal's based on. So,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, that something like that, you could have him able to do that, but without a crime scene required, where he can just kind of like look at pictures or documents or something and get the scene from those of what was happening around them. that could be something very useful. And frankly, an ability like that, I can see why you'd pair that with a bloodhound like Julian.
Yeah.
Because Julian's only good if he has a scent to follow.
Right.
And there, with an ability like that, you also justify how they were so gosh dang efficient at keeping up with Mora and tracking down the pieces of the Philosopher's Stone.
True.
They've got one, and what did they do? As soon as they've got Klaus, they're like, "Hey, Klaus, let's go for a ride. Let's go straight to what we've got. Hey, what do you think?" You know, like,
Right.
why? Why is Adrian showing him that? Well, now you've got a reason. Adrian takes him to the desert camp, shows him the work they've been doing and what they have, and even introduces him to Evrene because he wants Klaus to say, "Oh, here's where the next one is."
However, okay, so all right, so I really do like this because this fits Klaus, and I
Hmm.
think this gives him the meat and potatoes that I've been missing from him this entire time because he
Hmm.
has been kind of flat and just like in the shadows. Um, But my question becomes, so Adrian brought him back because he needs his mind, his way of thinking, his perception on things, and just his intuition, basically, and his ability there
Hmm.
to kind of complete the whole thing. Because that's why they were so successful for a minuscule amount of time in Abysm as being, these great
Sure.
warriors, and that's what made them so great until other things happened, and then they weren't.
Hmm.
But the the question becomes, Klaus doesn't have to use this ability for it. Not that he doesn't have to give up any of the information. I'm so excited that the sun is out because it was raining all day. Um, he doesn't need to give the information that he gets from all of this, from all of his investigating and just
Hmm.
all that to Adrian. So then, how
Emily.
would yeah, true. That's from Julian.
Hmm.
Gotcha.
And that's why Julian is his villain and not Adrian.
Yeah.
Frankly, Adrian probably could get away with just Julian and Evrene. But Adrian, and here's Adrian's thinking. Why doesn't he let Evrene use her alchemy paired with Julian to track these things down? Because he
Yeah, why
doesn't
not?
trust her further than he can kick her. Because he has no control over her. Julian has no
Yeah,
control over her. And frankly, you've talked before, he's not stupid. He knows Evrene is going to turn on him the second she gets the opportunity.
right. He
I
just
think,
needs her to here make stone for me, and
right.
I'll kill you.
He's
So
he's not stupid, and he
neither is she. That's the
emphatically
problem.
correct. And they are kind of a yin and yang going on. They are a balancing act. They balance each other. So Adrian needs something to unbalance the scales. But Julian's stupid and crude. In fact, you can even have Adrian tell Klaus this when in private. In that, the scene I'm talking about when he first brings him in, and it's before
Yeah,
they get on the helicopter. You can have him tell
yeah.
Julian to wait on the helicopter. He wants to talk to Klaus. This is going to be a chance for you to show the difference in the relationships toward Julian versus Adrian. And you can have Adrian basically tell Klaus, I need you. I need people I can trust. There's.
But he can't
We have
really
our.
trust Klaus either.
No, but he can play on that family sense. Remember, you've said Adrian is the politician, the
Yeah, that's
leader.
true.
Adrian knows what
Yeah,
to say.
yeah.
He can say, I don't like what Julian does. I think this is unpleasant. Necessary, but unpleasant. I see no reason anybody has to get hurt in this if you just help me out. Let's make
Hmm.
this very simple. You do what I want you to do. You go home back to your quaint little mundane world, and nobody you care about has to die.
Hmm.
I get what I want, and that's you can have him kind of make the argument. And if Klaus if you really want to show that Adrian is not that nice, you can have Klaus try to refuse and then have Adrian turn very unpleasant and hostile.
I like that because I feel like
You can have Klaus try to play
yeah,
by the rules. Be like, I see what you're saying, Adrian. You don't need me. Julian's the better tracker. I tell you, I'm really not what you're looking for. And you can have Adrian just like fucking pin him to the wall by the throat and be like, listen here, you little shit.
I think I want that because I also feel like since Klaus and Julian and Everine really do make up most of Klaus's POV, and Adrian truly is only seen through their POV and sporadically through Mora and Sage's, but that's more towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose Adrian as the antagonist and suddenly Julian is the main spotlight. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, Julian is a real piece of shit. Julian
No,
is like really this like I don't want Julian to
yeah,
overshadow Adrian, so I do
I
need
get you there.
Adrian to be like
You want him to
more.
still be scary. You need Klaus to
Yeah.
showcase that while Julian is his nemesis, Adrian is who the world should be worried about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you could do there, using the pin by the throat to the wall metaphor, is you can have Adrian say something like, "I'm trying to play nice with you. You don't get to spit in my face. You're gonna do this, and then you're gonna go home to your little girlfriend.
Mm.
I'm not asking again.
Right.
Get on the
Yeah. And
effing
he needs to
helicopter."
do like the iron fist. Like
Right.
the final say so. Like it's
And it really showcases a lot of Adrian's political side, that he first asks nicely. That he's maybe not asking per se, but he's courteous. He's telling Klaus, "Here's how it's going to be. Here's what I'm doing for you. I don't like what Julian's doing, but I needed to get you out here. You're here.
it's
So
working.
let's put this nonsense behind us. I'm
Mm.
happy you're home, brother. Now here's what I want you to do." And by showcasing this really polite, courteous side of Adrian, you can almost kind of pull a fast one on your readers. They'll be like, "Why is Klaus so afraid of this guy? This isn't so bad." And the contrast of when he suddenly turns very, very ugly. If you want to foreshadow the dragon thing, you could even have part of his features shift a little to be a little more draconic. His face turning scaled and snarling and fanged and reptilian as he's like threatening Klaus. And then when he just drops Klaus and like regains his composure, retains his human physique. That'll foreshadow that they, the dragon thing later, I think. Might be that's totally optional. Obviously, everything is optional, but that could.
I like it because I also like bringing the magic side.
The earlier, the better. The less off-putting.
That much magic in there, but yeah.
Yeah. You're definitely going to want to put some emphasis then on all three brothers' supernatural. Well, actually, no, not Adrian's supernatural, because his is a bit of a surprise. The size and ferocity of Adrian's supernatural gift, so to speak, beyond just the dragon. When I say size and scope, I mean literally its size and scope. Something else you can do, it's kind of a cartoon trick, but a way I've seen a lot of anime and a certain cartoon showcase that certain fire is hotter and more powerful than others is by making it blue.
Oh yeah.
Blue flame is essentially, it would be radioactive hot. It would be if you have throughout the story, as whenever Julian goes dragon and his fire is normal dragon fire, and it's you've said you want that to be pretty heckin' destructive, and you want a lot of, like, a powerful combustive effect going on with it. In order for Adrian's to seem even more powerful than that, you definitely need to up the special effects budget a little bit. So I would consider making Adrian's fire blue.
I like that.
And have all the Geiger counters start going off whenever he does it.
Well, that's gonna suck for Mora, getting blasted by his.
If Adrian's fire is powerful enough to burn Mora, she should be very concerned about that.
I think she would be. She's concerned that Everine can do it, so.
And that's something you're going to want to touch on with Mora's POV, is why doesn't she just face, if she's able to fight and die and fight again, if Mora can't be killed, why is she so hesitant to just fight Adrian every time he's doing something new? Even if she can't kill him per se, she could always just fight him and stop his plans. If you have Adrian so powerful that Mora just doesn't have the ability really to fight him because her defense is neutralized,
right.
You now have a reason why even Mora is like, let's consider some alternative options.
Let's try and talk.
She's not going to be like, oh, hell no, I ain't fighting him. She's going to be, we're going to do this instead.
She's gonna actually have a plan versus her norm, which is like, hey, we're just going, we're just doing it.
It would be less of fear, more of just logic. She just knows I can't beat him. Not in a fight, not in a straight fight. So in the scene with the church, that's gonna be freaking great. In the when Adrian does his thing, you want even his human because he can make fire in his human form too, right? Isn't that part of?
Yeah.
You're going to want that to be blue as well.
Oh, yeah. That would make sense.
So when he's blowing that church up, it's going to be a lot of blue. You could say that the church will be a big blue ruin. For our chat, Blue Ruin is the name of the series that the Phoenix is from.
Well, it was the original title, and then, title.
Yeah. So what do we have so far with Klaus? We have
much better character.
A much more interesting character too. So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the specifics now.
Okay.
So we know he has this ability. We know he's going to employ the ability for Adrian, right?
I feel like he would withhold some things just because if he is going on conviction and he knows that this is wrong, like I feel like he would he'd probably give Adrian like 50% of what he actually knows, and he would keep bits and pieces of like
answering the specifics of what's asked instead of the intent.
Yeah.
Right.
He would omit a lot just to try and keep some sort of control over what he doesn't want to help his brothers. He won't fully help them. He'll just give them bits and pieces to basically just keep them happy.
So
keep them going.
The first time he's really going to use that, unless you do something in court, which I think you should introduce that he has this power early, honestly, somehow. But the first time he uses this for Adrian will be in the desert, and it's to presumably discern, okay, he needs to discern that its most likely location, correct? That it's in Hollow's Forest?
Sure. Honest to God, I mean, but that comes from Evreen.
So what you could do, then, is connect the two. Have him see... what did you rename Medusa to? I can't remember the new name. Begins with an H, right? It's something Greek.
Yes.
I'm just gonna we'll call her Medusa.
It's easy enough.
We know that the emerald is with Medusa.
Right.
We know that she's in Hollow's Forest. So we need them to get this information because we need them to go to Hollow's Forest so that the scene with the elves can happen. Yay. So you can have Klaus, for instance, you can have him looking things over and put together. He can see the Medusa. He can see her experiment. He can see Evreen putting it into her eye, for example.
Right, that's easy enough because he has the pictures in front of him, so he can discern from that, oh, this is exactly what happened to her.
So that'll be Evreen already knows that. So that'll be kind of a swing and a miss. He'll say, okay, here it is. This person has it, and she can then say the name of who the individual is.
She'll be like, I already know, bitch. Like,
Adrian will be like, great, what else? Now, obviously, you need it to take time as well. They can't just be like, okay, there it is, let's go. Because, again, they can't get there first. So something you might do is have him say, okay, well, that's all I got based on what you have. Bring me some of her possessions. Show me some of her belongings or an old home. And I can find out where she is. Now you have a crumb trail. And a reason why he can't just go straight there.
I'm gonna say no to that only because if Evreen, based on off of what all the brothers can do, if Evreen brings, hey, this was the gown that I had her in while she was here, or this was her bed, or like something freaky. She'd
Hmm.
probably keep something freaky from them. This is her eyeball that I took out of her eye.
She would
Um,
still have that. And that absolutely needs to make an appearance in this chapter now.
it's so gross. um, Technically, Julian would be able to take the lead on that. Like, if we're doing the whole bloodhound thing, like,
Well,
he would be able to track her scent from that. So
only if they can
Klaus
pick up her
wouldn't really
scent.
been
Only if
if
they
he
can.
has his eyeball, you know.
Yeah, but the eyeball came from wherever Everine took it from, not to where she's at now.
Right. But and I get that they're literally half a world away from where she actually is. So
Right.
to actually track her scent through a desert and then through an entire forest and then underground, that's a bit extreme.
Right. So what you
But
need is Klaus needs to bring them to the Hollows Forest. Julian can take them to where she's actually at.
I don't know how he would make that inference as to her being there.
Well, that's where it comes down
Evrene
to
would
reading people.
Evrene Evrene would know though because she did have the ruby, so she would know exactly where she is, or she would have the idea of, oh, it's the same
That's
way as
true.
Sage is able to see.
True.
So I mean, Klaus isn't really needed there. That's not really his time. Not his time to shine, but that's not really his
It's
opportunity to show because at that point I can take
so
him out of that scene. Not that I would, but he can be out of that scene and they would still come to the same conclusion.
correct. So what it seems like it's going to come down to for Klaus is um predicting the actual defenses, the behavior, knowing what to expect, knowing what's waiting for them.
That's true. Oh, that's easy. Okay. That's
So
yeah.
then maybe Klaus can
That makes
see a
sense.
castle. Maybe he'll see that she is in the heart of elven territory, so that any trespassers will have to deal with them. He could honestly, he could even see Annis.
I feel like he would not in the desert scene. I feel like that scene where they get
Oh no,
into
no, no.
Hollow's Forest, he would see that there once they get closer. As for like the actual desert scene where he's first introduced to all these pieces, relics that he has to go find, I feel like he would be able to figure out what her capabilities
Hmm.
are.
I
Like he
think
could that's when he
too.
could delve out to his brothers or, "Oh, she can turn us all to stone and
I
that will be
think a
good."
big part of this too. Remember, is that even if his abilities are redundant with Evrene's, he's there to keep her balanced so that she's never too necessary. So it doesn't really matter if he gets the same result as Evrene. Just the fact that he is getting the same results as Evrene is all Adrian really needs. That and Klaus keeping an eye on her, making sure she doesn't get up to anything too nasty. Um,
Mm.
actually that works out well. Why is he sending Klaus with Julian and Evrene? I'm not I don't do that. I'm not a scout or a woodsman. Adrian can say because call it a hunch. I just want to make sure everything goes how
But
it's supposed to
that
go.
also brings up the question of Adrian is aware that Everine, as soon as she can, will turn her back on him
Hmm.
and will just take the stone for herself and go on her merry little way and whatever.
Hmm.
But Klaus has essentially also done the same by turning his back on his brothers years and years and years ago and abandoning the family and Jess. So I feel like he would also be aware of the fact that perhaps Klaus would be tempted by Evrene to sort of side with her and help her versus helping Adrian. That all of a sudden he would have two traitors versus just having Evrene.
Makes sense.
I
So
mean, but he can have Julian there
and
to
that's well
keep
right.
his eyes on Clausen because he's going to come back with the truth no matter what. I mean,
I
at
mean
the end of the day, Julian doesn't really have a dog in the fight. He's just like, give me something to do. Like he doesn't really care if Adrian is successful, if
right.
everyone's successful. Like it's just kind of like Adrian is
Julian's here for
putting
the
him on a mission
opportunity for violence.
to right, exactly.
Hmm.
And Adrian is offering him this opportunity, so he's just gonna go with it and be like, okay, fine, tell
Sure.
me what I need to do, tell me my job, and I will do my job. And I think Julian's job would be, hey,
Well,
keep
and the
Klaus and
Bloodhound.
Everine right. Keep Klaus and Everine in check. Let me know if either of them, because
Well,
Adrian can
here's
trust Julian. He can't trust Julian to not kill everyone,
no.
but he can trust Julian to come back and give him information and not hide things from him, and to always be loyal to him. I
So
mean, Julian clearly doesn't.
something that Adrian absolutely can do here and can say if you want him to is that he doesn't need Klaus's ability to know what's going to happen to Emily if Klaus betrays him.
True.
Julian is on a leash right now, and that leash is only as long as Klaus stays honest for him. So, sending Klaus and Julian together, in a sense, he can trust Klaus. As long as Julian's alive, he can trust Klaus. And I feel like Adrian doesn't need supernatural empathic abilities to know that Klaus isn't going to kill Julian.
Oh yeah, I mean, he knows he
So,
he trusts Klaus to be the weak one.
right. So he
To know
can,
that he's
in a
not
sense,
going.
he can absolutely depend on Klaus and Julian to get it all done. Evrine makes this fast, and it makes it doable to put it all together. But he doesn't need her to find them. He really only needs her. At this point, he's humoring her in the same way she's humoring him. Klaus and Julian, in a sense, are going with her as a reminder to her how unnecessary she is to him. Like it's a point. He's sending Evrine a message by sending them with her. Yes, they serve the purpose of all three of them backing each other up, but there is a power play going on here. There is Evrine saying, I don't. You could even have her say, I will go get this, and say, I don't need your brothers. And he can say, oh, but I think you do. Or, oh, but humor me. They're going to go with you anyway. Because Evrine emphatically, right out the gate, would be like, I don't want anybody going with me. Why the hell would she want Julian and Klaus going with her to face the Medusa?
Well, why the hell would she want to? I mean, I also have to figure out what Adrian is offering her in terms of, hey, go find these for me and
He might
make
be.
them this all powerful stone, but you don't get to keep it. You have to make it for me.
Oh, I know what he's offering her. He's offering alchemists a place in his new world.
Oh, that's true. Wow, I'm an idiot. Yeah.
He's offering her a chance to bring back her people because Evrine, now mind you, Evrine is unapologetically wicked. She is evil in a way Adrian frankly isn't. But that's not to say that she doesn't have her own desires, motivations. That's not to say that she's not in her own way, frankly, a patriot. Evrine is 100% a product of her people. She's an alchemist just as much as any of them were, and I don't think it's a stretch to say that she has that sense of pride in what she is, and I could even see her wanting a return to the old ways, her wanting alchemists back. She should want that. Why wouldn't she? Because she's a scientist. She wants progress. She alone can facilitate all kinds of science and progress, but she's still one person. Imagine a return to the days of an entire culture of alchemists, an entire group of people building up. It just opens the door. So much more is possible. Unrestricted progress and science without the without something as infuriating and trifling as moral compunctions getting in the way. Adrian is a means to that end. Adrian gives her the opportunity to rebuild, to recreate her people from the ground up. It's definitely, it would be a new facet to her character, but it doesn't seem like it's an unlikely facet, and it definitely justifies why she's doing all of this. Why work with Adrian?
I just had a thought, though.
What are you thinking?
She could just do this all without him.
She could.
Like,
But
she
she
could
can't.
just be like, "Meh, I will just recreate the world myself
But as we saw with the fact
and
that
kill you."
she damn near got killed at the hands of a fucking waitress with a fireball.
Oh, poor thing.
Evrene is not immortal. She is not unstoppable. Frankly, in a one-on-one fight, she might be okay, but against even a small group of people, she's not great. She's alone.
Well, oh yeah, that's true. She
And
is alone. She is
there's a
alone.
continent full of people, a government, a military. You haven't really addressed it much, but Iruhan has a military.
Yeah.
They have a military. They probably, it seems like, the impression I get is that they are probably, they're not a democracy, not a democratic government. It doesn't seem like. It seems like they are more akin to totalitarianism. Like
Sounds
they have a
okay.
single leader who's in charge, who probably a very military focused government. Especially since the source of the government is called what? The Keep. The Keep. A keep being a castle, a military installation. I.e., you have a
True.
military government.
I
Right?
guess I do. Yeah. Yeah, I don't
So,
really touch on the government in this one. I do in the
right.
second one. So I
It's still important to know, I think. So,
I think
that being the
so.
case, you have a military government getting in the way of a return to alchemy. And that is not a problem she can deal with on her own. Frankly, it's not even a problem Adrian can deal with on his own. It's a problem that requires an unlimited source of magic and the ability to create without consequence or hesitation.
Right.
And in the final battle, particularly after the Philosopher's Stone is in Adrian's hands, something that you're really going to need to play up is a military presence. There needs to be full freaking mystic military happening, and like it should look like a war zone. And not just because Adrian's blowing everything up. I mean, it should look like two sides of a war zone, just one side is losing.
Oh man, that's so much writing.
Yep. Yep. It really is. It really is. But I mean, you don't just, this isn't a superhero comic where a single villain in a mech suit can be like, I'm the leader now, the world is mine. There's actually militaries, there are people, there's soldiers, there are millions, and I mean millions of people. You need to justify why you can't just have a pile of 10,000 corpses and number 10,001 is the one who sticks the knife in Adrian. Why isn't it like that? You need to be able to justify that here is a guy who literally brought down, who toppled a military regime. And that got to happen. And that kind of plays on, too, something I've been talking about a lot. And obviously, this isn't the subject of today's appointment, but just to mention, is stretching out your timeline from 1 week to maybe being a few weeks. Travel taking longer isn't really going to hurt much, but what it will help with is you justifying 2 weeks of Adrian with the stone and watching the entire country come apart at the hinges. You know? So that by the time Sage goes out there, you have like blockaded streets, you have checkpoints, you have closed roads, you have, I don't know if they use tanks given the presence of if there's tanks, they probably shoot fire magic through their weapons, but you want to have a focus on, hell, you could have dead tanks, like blown up tanks. You can have abandoned checkpoints. You can have air mystics literally flying through the air, dropping, or air mystics acting as the vehicles while fire mystics rain fire down on Adrian. And you know, it comes back to probably, didn't you already have Adrian calling elementals and taking advantage of that as part of what he makes with the stone?
Askel? Do you remember?
You're gonna, I remember talking about
Yes.
that.
Yes.
I don't know if it made it into the current draft. I would definitely fall back
Might
on
have
that.
been cut. Yeah.
I would fall back on that, because if you've got, again, it comes back to, if you've got millions of people, a dog pile will probably suffice. All they've got to do is get the stone out of his hand, right? So the first thing you want Adrian to do is create enough magical forces that that's never going to be a possibility.
Hmm.
Elementals. And since you have such a strong air, water, fire, earth theme already going with everything, you don't even need to justify it too hard. You don't even need to call them elementals necessarily. You can just have his stone create forces of fire, water, air, and earth just rising out of the ground or materializing out of the air with a vaguely humanoid shape, or not even that, and just move off and wreak destruction.
Hmm.
But from a writing standpoint, you shouldn't need to like add chapter after chapter after chapter to do this. All you really need to do is just make it clear that it's happening. You've already got the chapters establishing it. It's just, instead of one man toppling an entire government with a military backbone, you've now got one man who creates his army is in essence unlimited. Because, oh no, you killed my fire elemental. Oop, there's 3 more. So that will also set the stakes really high for Sage and Mora, and why throughout all of this it was so imperative that he never be allowed to succeed. And also this, getting back to, so starting to pull back from Evrene's standpoint, she could make all those elementals too if she could make this stone, but unfortunately for her, she can't even put the stone together because she has a city. The water piece in particular, the pearl, is protected by an entire city-state of aquatic, presumably warriors. You have a forest with an entire culture of elves who really don't want her there. And that's without getting into Seth and the Medusa and, the guardians of these. Did you ever come up with a name for what they're called? You can't call them just pieces. That's gonna.
Relics. I just called them relics. In the beginning, they're just literally called pieces.
We'll work on that.
Oh, but I like it.
The relics.
The relics. Sounds better than the pieces.
It does. Relic is
in dialogue. The pieces. Go get the pieces. It's
that's so horrible. We're gonna have to come up with some cool name for that. Maybe we'll call them relics.
Relics are cool.
Yeah, but relics usually have a different.
What's the like what?
I don't know. There's sort of a religious.
They are though.
Okay, I know I'm pretending I can't see the chat, but someone suggested shards, which is actually a really fitting idea. The idea of a philosopher's stone being broken into shards. But that implies that
they have the same ring to
it.
But it's not like they're all different. Like
these weren't. It's not like a single philosopher's stone was broken apart into these shards. Implies that they're pieces of formerly something whole. These are literally it's more like ore.
Ingredients.
They're raw. They're raw ore that needs to be processed and smelted into something new.
They're the ingredients, but I can't call them ingredients either.
I could see.
I think Julian calls it an ingredient once.
I think different people would have different words for them. I would imagine most people might call them relics, associating a religious significance. I would imagine the alchemists would call them reagents, which is what you call like the things that go into a form, like a.
So scientific.
It's extremely scientific, exactly. So when I say the alchemist, who I mean is Evrene.
Yeah, Evrene.
And also reagents, relics, they kind of go to. I could, the word is similar enough that I think. Anyway, I digress. So you have these relics that are in essence unreachable by Evrene. She could get maybe 1 or 2 of them. She obviously got her hands on the ruby, but even that, I can't imagine she took.
After many years,
I can't imagine she took Seth by herself and was like, "Look what I found" to Adrian.
Right.
More like I would imagine she found him. She maybe did try and got discovered very quickly that he is not interested in giving it to her, nor is he in a position where she could incapacitate him. I would have that be the point at which she approached Adrian to. She was in essence looking for a militant arm. She needed someone with the strength to get at her access to these relics.
She wanted the numbers and she wanted the protection because
Mhm.
while she's a very skilled alchemist and can concoct very many different spells and all that jazz,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, she can't fly away and she can't burn down an entire forest at the snap of her fingers. Like, it actually takes a lot of effort for her to. She's a lot not slower in this. Slow sounds like a bad word, but to get anything done, it's a lengthy process
Mm-hmm.
for her. Whereas Adrian can just poof, here's a giant dragon, and now he's burning down everything. Like with her, it's okay. I need to get these ingredients, and I need to make this spell, and lots of. And at that point, like
Mm-hmm.
whoever is coming after her, the elves have captured her. Like that.
And honestly, she should be pretty concerned about Mora too. In one-on-one, yeah, she probably could get Mora, but the problem there is Mora could come at any time, any day, and frankly, I would imagine Everine's not super interested in watching over her shoulder 24/7.
No.
So,
Not at all.
and she would absolutely know Mora's going to come looking very quickly once this process starts. She probably was expecting Mora in the desert.
She's probably expecting more a very long time ago, not realizing that Mora does not remember who
Repressed
she
memories and yeah.
yeah, does not realize that Everine is someone to come after.
Mhm.
Um,
I would
so
imagine
Everine
her first plan was Mora. She would wait for Mora to come to her and use Mora as her strong arm, and then Mora never
right.
came.
And he was like, oh,
So after years of like, why isn't she coming after me? All right, I need a new plan.
right.
Honestly, how many years was she waiting? Probably about as many years as Sage is old.
Now like 25 years.
Yep. Because that does seem around the time period, right, when Everine first would have been doing this. So all of that, again, digressing even further back into Klaus now.
Yeah.
So you have Everine, who really kind of needs people. She needs martial. She needs warriors. She needs people who can fight, who can protect her. She needs manpower. You have Adrian, who is powerful, but not so powerful that he can. I mean, yeah, in his big damn dragon, he could wreak a lot of destruction, but ultimately, he would go the way of every dragon you've ever heard of. And yeah, would he die? No, he'd come back, but he doesn't want to murder the entire country of Iruhan. That's no good to him.
Right.
He needs subjugation.
Right. I need to get my other earpiece. Keep talking.
Okay.
Hold on.
So, with that power balance in play, you have Adrian bringing in Klaus and Julian to invalidate Everine, to make sure she knows who's really in charge. And frankly, given that Adrian has that level of power, and Julian and Klaus, while slower, can track down the relics, Everine really is at a disadvantage, which is precisely why, as soon as the new player is introduced, she tries to get him on her side. Because why else would Everine give a shit about Klaus?
Just numbers.
He's a right. But she has the numbers now with Adrian, but she's well aware that when this is all said and done, Adrian is going to be a tyrant. And yeah, he'll probably bring back the alchemists as his alchemists, serving him, doing his science, making his weapons. That's not what she wants. She wants a return to the days of Abysm, but not with a tyrant like Adrian in charge. She wants more of a scientific society with someone like her in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So, to Klaus, she immediately knows, I can parade peace. We can coexist with mystics. They don't have to all die. We can let you go back to your mundane. I have no interest in the mundane. It's mundane. Not for me. There's literally nothing on Earth that would interest her. Why would it? When she has the Philosopher's Stone. More people to protest. She's not a sadist or a psychopath. She just doesn't care. So he can have his mundane. She can dangle this all to Klaus, and now you have two people, both of whom have a compelling argument for Klaus's loyalty, sort of, vying for him. And again, that makes it more interesting. Because now Klaus is actually needed by both of them.
True.
Because also, let us not forget that Klaus, if you don't have his magic stripped from him, which obviously you can't, can still technically turn into a dragon. Which is also going to justify, I don't know if you remember, your favorite critter had a problem with a certain someone getting thrown out of a helicopter several thousand feet up and just being like, oh, I'm okay.
I'm good.
Yeah. How did that happen? Well, now you have an answer. Presumably, Klaus used his magic. And you can have him wake up in a dragon-shaped crater in the desert. Like, it doesn't... You don't jump into his POV in that chapter with him falling. It jumps to his POV with him coming to, right?
Yeah.
So then, yeah, emphatically have him just laying in a big damn dragon-shaped crater in his human form, like, oh god, that hurt, but I'm fine. And then the readers won't necessarily see that he can go dragon too. Presumably, though, if you do that, if you tease that he can go dragon, you're going to need to show it in the end sequence. But he doesn't have to kill it. That's the beauty of it. You can have him utilize that as, I believe the gamers would call it, a tank. And I don't mean a literal tank, I mean tanking in the sense that he is soaking up hits. He's taking hits for the people who can't take them. He's utilizing being big and presumably smaller even than Julian, but being big and being covered in armored scales to protect the people who are not big and covered in scales. Which is very much in the spirit, I think, of what he could do in his newly realized state at the end in the final battle. Because by that point, it's all descending action for him. He no longer needs to prove what his convictions are. He's passed his trial, he's won. His prize is that he may help the people who he cares about in the ways that he most wants to. So you can have him take part in your final struggle as, in essence, a shield. Or maybe even just, like, a bulldozer, running into things, maybe a little violent, but non-murderously taking part. And also, it's worth mentioning, if you're using elementals, he's not killing by destroying elementals, because they are not living creatures. They're just wisps of magic.
Right.
So, there's some options for you. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with Klaus in the end to make his... Assuming there's going to be a POV chapter of him in the final struggle, now you have something to actually have him doing. Other than just standing there wringing his hands like, oh, this sucks, sure wish I had something I could do.
Right.
Now you have something he can do. So, the main point, I think, the most important, the most critical moment of his entire POV is when Julian is killing Sage. Because Klaus is there. And you can have this moment, once again, where Klaus speaks up, says, stop, I won't let you do this, and Julian can just laugh and be like, oh, just like the hooker? Should I make you kill this one this time? And if you take advantage of, like, having Emily call him the night after he tries to stop Julian from killing whoever, and she's like, I'm really scared, someone's outside the house, what do I do? And then you have her scared to death. You can have Julian say, I won't just sit outside her window this time. I'll go there and I'll break her neck with my bare hands if you don't do this. Take her. You're going to kill he could try to force Klaus to hurt Sage. But there's so many ways you can do this. The important thing is in the scene where Klaus steps up to to Julian, ultimately, we know Sage is going to do the thing that she does to Julian. But you must have Klaus be the reason that is possible. It is imperative that Klaus fight Julian in some way. Either by grabbing him and ripping him off of her and struggling with him over the knife. It was a knife, right, that he was using?
Yes.
I thought it was a knife. It was something along those lines, that he's struggling with him over the weapon. You can have them get into even fisticuffs. You can have Julian heckin' stab Klaus and throw him on the ground and be just drenched in blood. You can have Julian start to say, I'm going to start to describe exactly what he's going to do to Emily now.
Mm-hmm.
You can have him in the middle of that, of promising Klaus all of the ways he's going to make him suffer, and that's all before he gives him to Adrian. As Sage grabs his ankle and does what you know she does.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think it's better that way, that Sage, in essence, not overpower Julian, not suddenly turn the fight around on him, but that she be lying on the ground, like, choking on her own blood and dying when she kills Julian.
Mm-hmm.
Kills in quotes. I mean, when she does what she does. And it is imperative, though, that whatever you do in that scene, however you play it out, Klaus must stand up to his brother and be the reason Sage doesn't die.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't be like I guess he kind of... No, it has to be unmistakable. Because this is his moment of redemption. His moment, his climax of the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
This is the point where he must shine.
Right.
And this is also your moment to make Julian the foulest, most evil you possibly can.
Oh, so much fun.
And honestly... this is from Sage's POV, correct?
Yeah.
You want her to care. You want her to realize that she's dying, but also to want Klaus, maybe to want him to help her, maybe to feel grateful for him helping her. In the moment when she grabs Julian and does what she does, it should be a moment where the audience cheers.
Mm.
Honestly, you want your readers to fucking jump out of their chair and, like, throw the book up in the air and, like, when Klaus interferes. You want them to feel like she's dying in that moment. Like, this is it. This is the end. And suddenly Klaus... the only thing I can compare it to is something that I know you haven't seen, but I'm thinking of Return of the Jedi. There's a point where everyone knows that, the Darth Vader, Luke's father and everything, but there's a point where Luke is literally being electrocuted to death, begging for his father to save him, and in this climactic moment, you can see Darth Vader looking back and forth between master and son, and then finally he grabs the Emperor, carrying him, getting electrocuted himself, and throws him down a shaft. And it's not entirely unexpected, but it's so dramatic and powerful because it's what you want to happen. There's this anguish of the hero is about to die. We're watching him die before our eyes. And then the character who can help, but really you don't expect to help, does. You want that to matter. You want it to be such a big moment that, like, your readers are exhilarated by it. Because all up to this point, you've been building hype for Klaus. You've wanted them to be like, stand up to him. At the point when he says, don't kill that hooker, you want them to be like, yeah, you tell him. And you want them to silently be saying, do it. Fucking jump on Julian. Throw him away. Beat the hell out of him. Make him take a long walk off a short pier. And you want them to grieve when Klaus doesn't. You want to dangle that carrot in front of your readers the entire book, so that way, like, there's desire. And ideally, by the time the Julian death scene comes, they should not know if he's going to do it. They should want him to. They should really want Klaus to step in, but they should be at a point where, really, they don't know that he's going to.
Mm.
So that way, when he does, you have the cheering and the celebration, and, you know, and the redemption. This is the redemption arc for Klaus.
Mm.
So, spend lots of time on that chapter. Is, I guess.
Oh God.
You're most of the way there. Really, most of it's fine. All you really need is to change what Klaus actually does in his moment. You just need him to actually participate and emphatically stop Julian.
I guess where I run into issues, because that's, I think I've easily, I mean, he doesn't have that many chapters to begin with, thankfully. But I think I've easily done that, built up to this point. I just didn't deliver it in the right way. But there's still, like, that's the midway point of the book. Well, somewhat.
It's about 3/5.
So, I mean, I still have this entire just
and for
rest
him,
of the book where it's like, okay, he did his thing. Now what
he gets to, for that, he's enjoying his reward. And as you've noticed, there's not too many Klaus chapters from that point forward, but his reward is that he gets to be a good guy now. He doesn't have to fight for Adrian anymore. So what you can have him do, frankly, is be more passive. He can step in and carry Sage to the boat. You can have him go off and rat out all of Adrian's secrets to Mora. You can have him really just be there and be supportive and apologetic. You can have him call Emily and tell her that he's okay, and have her be like, all right. He's like, just, like, to him, it's such a big deal, but he can't tell her everything, so to her, it's just gonna be like, great, I guess. I'm glad you're happy.
Awesome.
I'm glad you're okay. I mean, you definitely want to include her in his epilogue. You want him to feel like he's really made her proud, even if he can't tell her.
Right.
So really, you don't need to spend a lot of attention to him in that final 2/3 or 2/5 of the book, because that's Mora and Sage's time. His POV, his purpose has been to showcase Adrian and Julian up to that point, which he fulfilled. At this point, his purpose changes. Now, his purpose is to help them, to act narratively as a buffer between them and Adrian, to potentially take them to Adrian. He may very well know where Adrian is. If you consider that you have a city full of elementals fighting mystic soldiers and tanks and airplanes and whatever, where the hell is Adrian? I mean, if it was clear where he was, again, you'd have the dogpile problem. They would all come for him.
Right.
So, Klaus knows where Adrian is. Of course he does. He has his supernatural ability. He can go to a scene of destruction and be like, okay, we know Adrian blasted this with dragon fire. Let's look at the scenes of this wreckage. Oh, I'm getting a sense that he went back this way, or something like, Klaus is still Klaus. Everything that made him valuable to Adrian makes him valuable to Sage and Mora.
Right.
So you can have him serve as the tactical coordinator. If you still had a POV with Max, you could very well have him telling mystic forces helping guide their forces. You can have him step in. In fact, that very well may be something you actually should do, is have him get involved with the Keep, talking about his brother, utilizing his abilities, and frankly, being the abysmal who people remember as the reason why not all abysmals are bad in book 2. Because obviously, after all this, I have to imagine there's going to be public opinion where they're just going to be asking, why are we still letting Abysmals live in Aruhan after what just happened? Well, if
True.
Klaus Wilhelm was at the forefront, not of the front lines, but like with their commanders, with their police force, if he was utilizing his abilities to help them, then public opinion can be swayed.
Oh, he's gonna hate that. Like, he would hate the idea of being the face of, the one who brought down
Hmm.
Adrian,
Especially
knowing that,
since
like, it wasn't him.
especially since coming in book 2, it'll mean he can't just go back to the mundane to Emily. It'll mean that either Emily has to be his secret on the side, or
Mhm.
he's stranded, which will be a great arc for him in book 2.
Yeah. Yeah, he really does wanna just, like, fly under the radar.
And
Can't
he
do that.
can't if he's now a public figure, much like Sage. And this will also serve something you had talked about, was having the two of them bond in the second book.
Right.
Something that will serve is they have something to bond over. Both of them just want to go back to their lives, and neither of them is allowed to.
And both of them know that they really weren't
Aren't
the ones.
heroes. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because both of them will think that, but we, the readers, and you, the writer, know that, frankly, yes, they are the heroes. They really did
Right.
do this. They really
Right.
do deserve this fame and glory. But
Right.
to Sage, no, I don't. I'm just a waitress who got really, really lucky like 6 times and then
Yeah.
tripped and fell and accidentally stopped Adrian forever.
Right. Pretty
And
much, and I mean, Klaus was the same way.
like if
Both of them
I
didn't want to do this.
right, exactly. And Klaus would probably be haunted, but I'm assuming you're going to keep that scene where he tries to stop Julian killing someone and doesn't. Whoever that person is will haunt Klaus 100%. He will never forget the face of someone who he could have saved if he had acted sooner, but he chose not to.
Right.
And frankly, that will haunt him well into maybe even the third book, when you bring him and Emily back together, when he can't look at her without seeing the person he chose to let die so she could live.
Right. Oof.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, everyone is
Mm-hmm.
haunted by somebody.
Mm-hmm. Dark fantasy, man. This is what you signed up for.
I know, right?
So yeah. So what I would do with Klaus then is, in the final 2/5 of the book, first have him helping Sage as much as he can, and when he reaches a point where he just can't help her anymore, when she just doesn't need him anymore, you pawn him off on Max. Now, she might not be a POV character anymore, but she's still emphatically a character in the story. She's still the
Right.
detective who's been assigned to the Mora case, and frankly, when Adrian, when all of this goes down, Max is Mora's contact. When they're like, how do we get Klaus somewhere where he can make a difference, Max is going to be the one. They're going to be like, they're going to call her in. They're going to say, here is a man. This is Klaus Wilhelm. This is what he can do. Get him somewhere where he can be valuable. And then that will give you the opportunity to, in fact, you want a POV where you can really showcase the war going on between Adrian and Mystics? Klaus.
Yeah.
Especially if he's championing the strategic response. If he can go in and see what's happening and fill in the role he once filled in the war back in Blue Ruin, I mean, that's a perfect POV. That's a great chapter, honestly. That's a great chapter to introduce the new world.
True.
Adrian's new world.
Mm.
So that's everything I'm thinking with regards to Klaus. I feel like that really covers his narrative arc. You have you have an establishment showcasing his new supernatural power. You have a scene where you're going to test his conviction and haunt him with guilt over someone's death, and really play up Julian. I know you love opportunities to make Julian even more of a dickhead.
Yeah.
There it is. You have opportunities to reiterate on that, as he's in the desert, as he's in the forest, even in the drowned city. But ultimately, you have his climax, where he faces Julian, and frankly, he wins. He might not kill Julian, but he conquers Julian by standing up to him and by being unafraid.
Mm.
And then you have his epilogue, in a sense, where he gets to be a good guy. He gets to use his powers to save lives. And frankly, he makes a difference. And he plays an integral part in your narrative. Right?
Yeah.
So are there any more weaknesses that you want to address with Klaus? Is there anything that you really want to focus on with him? Or are you feeling like you've got direction now? And
I feel like I have better direction and just a better grasp on what's needed of him and his character and his purpose.
Mhm. And kind of where to expand and where to reduce.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like this will also help a little bit with a couple of the minor plot holes around Adrian. It should seal them up just nicely.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Well, is there anything else you want to go over in this particular appointment, or do you want to open it up to our chat if they have any questions?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, because I don't really have anything yet. I'm still in those
What do I do with all of
nitty-gritty
this now?
chapters. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I'm sure as I write and change things, I'll stumble upon something else, and it's like, fuck, okay. I'm not yet to the big showdown
Mhm.
scene yet. I'm not ready for that one yet. That's it's gonna be a lot.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Well, chat. We're now you have our attention. Is there anything anyone in chat wants to ask or say or um, criticize or judge? You guys got
Judge.
anything? We'll give it a few a minute or two to see if anyone has anything they want to say. But yeah, it's actually been about 2 hours. It's a pretty good appointment.
Yeah.
Tanaline
Totally.
says this has changed a lot from the first version that she read.
Okay, she read like that was like 7 revisions ago.
That was, I think, the last time Tanaline read it wasn't Mora still the main character.
Yes, and Mora probably killed someone in an airport.
Oh my god, that scene, that was the scene where I was like,
Everyone,
okay, this is so well written, but I don't know if you
but
actually
it's
want this
so
in your book.
well, that's pretty much what every beta reader said. They were like, great scene, really got the feels, but if this is your main character, we're gonna have some
Mhm.
issues to work out. And then we made more the backseat, threw her into to the background there.
So Chai wants to know what the book is called or series. He doesn't know what the book or series is. This is uh the Blue Ruins series, book 1, The Phoenix. Did I get that right?
Yes. Though
It
I don't know
is,
if I'm gonna have an overall series. I guess I should have
if
an
you're doing
overall
a
series
trilogy,
there.
you have to name
Yeah,
the trilogy. Every trilogy has a
I
name.
know. But Blue Ruin was originally the original title
Hmm.
of the first book.
Yes. So what we
But
were talking about with the version that Tanaline read, Chai, this was actually self-published. How many years ago? Like 5 years ago? 4 years ago?
honest to God, if I wrote it in 2014, probably in 2016,
So 4 years
17,
ago.
I
Yeah.
self-published it.
It was self-published. It was uh it needed a little more time in the oven. It did not
A
stay
little more time?
it did not stay published for very
Very
long.
long. No.
Um it was very quickly taken down, though I believe Ashley has an actual copy of that book.
I still have. I mean, I have a copy. I have a copy of all the versions that I have, but I do have a copy of the book that was actually published
Well, you're the
upstairs
author.
in
You
my
don't count.
bookcase.
You're not allowed.
Well, you know.
Um,
I had four of them for whatever reason.
I feel like when this version goes out, you should offer an incentive, like a buyback program. Like people should give you the old copy so they can't have it or see it anymore, and you can.
It shouldn't be out in the world. It needs to be in an incinerator. This is terrible.
Well, no, it wasn't terrible. It actually, I also have read that version. This was before I was RM's editor, writing coach,
Yeah.
etc. We were just friends at the time, and I read it cover to cover. It wasn't bad.
It was terrible.
So the descriptive writing in it was really good. It had chapters that were really good. I feel like we should take. You remember the steamy scene between Evrene and Klaus?
Oh, yeah, I know.
I get a sadistic glee in taking that old text and showing it to people. Would you object to making that chapter available to people in my chat if they're interested?
No. Yeah, I mean, I still have it because that's my golden chapter.
Can you get a share link for that and post that in my chat?
All right, let me see. All right, I'm gonna get real up close and personal here.
I bet you if you check far back enough, Tanaline probably still has a link to that chapter.
Let's see. Let's open
this. This was in the original cut, I think. This is some sexy NSFW writing. And like everyone reads like, holy shit, it's really good. But Tanaline is asking if Klaus and Evrene are still exes. No.
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 They do not know whatsoever.
No romance.
Only tie to anyone is Mora. They're the only two with some sort of history. All right, drive.
The character. So Evrene went from being kind of a Black Widow character, and I don't mean the Marvel Black Widow. I mean more like a vicious, manipulative woman who was using her sex as a weapon to control others and sometimes to murder. She went from that kind of character to now she is a very clinical scientist. She's do you have a character who she might compare to?
Honestly, I don't, because she wasn't really based off of.
No, she's one of the only ones who you kind of went into without a face.
She just kind of developed as I went along. But yeah, she was kind of just, where the hell are my old documents?
So she's gone to being. I might have it. I'll take a look while we're talking. She's gone to. She's now kind of she's a scientist. She is analytical. She's still manipulative, but in a very different way. She's more of a sociopathic manipulator than as Tanaline puts it, a dominatrix.
I mean, she definitely still has that quality about her. She's very scientific. She understands and is willing to make the sacrifices to improve certain things. I think, honest to God, I took a lot of that from like my job. I just plopped it into her.
I could see that.
But she's definitely into the research. She definitely realizes that if she's going to improve something or create something, that there are going to be casualties, and she's willing to make those casualties and sacrifices. And she's kind of like she's been very interesting to try and figure out. It'll be fun to write her in the second book.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, she's fun to read even in this version. But it's the only thing she has in common, really, is the name. She's she's a brand new character. Tanaline notes it's amazing how characters changed and evolved over time. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, a lot of that happening here.
Have you had any luck in finding it?
No, where is this awful? Like, where is this?
I thought it was in the blah 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 writing folder.
You have that still?
I do.
Is it not in the blah 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 writing folder?
The only documents I can see in blah 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 writing are Abysm 2016 Work in Progress and Fate
Oh
of the
Jesus
Angels.
Christ!
Um,
That
there
is
is one
old.
character, Tanaline, who has not really changed much. Funny enough. I mean, well, no, never mind. Yeah, he has. I was gonna say Liam,
Who?
but no.
Liam
Right,
doesn't. Oh, I
he
was
was
gonna say
a
Liam
EMT.
doesn't
Oh,
exist.
Julian. Julian hasn't changed.
Oh no,
Uh-oh.
Julie's just like gotten worse.
I mean, he's a little more vicious than he used to be, but yeah, Julian has not changed. I think as long as I've been reading this manuscript. I'm betting in
No, he's
Abysm 2016 we can find that chapter. By the way,
what?
actually, wait a minute. No, it wouldn't be in there because it was in the
I'm
draft
gonna
after that.
go on to like my writers. Oh my
Okay.
god! Wow, there's a lot in on this email. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to you finding it. I think because I've got the Phoenix edited, but that's from 2018. I don't
Oh
think
wait.
that's it.
Okay, let's see.
Oh,
Oh my god! Wow. Okay, give me
nope.
one
Sage
second.
is
I
in this.
found
It can't be.
this. All right, here we go. Let's see. Is this first person POV? Oh man, this is an old. This is from 2016. Okay, so this will be where it is. Oh my
Okay.
god, it's loading
Well,
because
are you
it's a
sure?
full manuscript.
Because I remember I was already hired as your editor when you
In
wrote that scene.
16?
I don't think I was in 2016. I think I was when you wrote this scene.
I don't think you were though.
Because I remember editing this one.
I don't think you were. I mean, but the thing is, I've had this scene for a really long time.
True.
If Dana read it, then this is. Let's see.
I wonder if you
Uh,
took it down. Because I used to have it shared with me, and I definitely don't have it anymore.
No, I think I found it. Hold on. Wow. Oh my god, this is something with Julian's POV. This was 202 pages. Oh my god.
That was some good shit.
All right, let's do this and let's actually find. I'm not going to scroll through 10,000. Wow, this is interesting.
Tanaline wants to know about Liam now. So in the original draft, Liam he was a EMT?
Yes, yes.
He was an EMT, and he was kind of Mora's love interest. He was a really boring, dry character in that.
It was so boring.
He was like mild mannered and
Oh,
agreeable to
I found it.
everything. Oh, you found it? Okay.
Oh,
Share
damn.
that shit with our. Just post the share link to it right in the chat. Just make sure that they can't edit it or anything. Make sure it's read only.
All right, hold on. Let me like get. To...
But how Liam has changed in the first draft of the revised version of the story. Max was the detective who was hunting Mora. Mora is this vigilante, the Phoenix, and she was very violent, so Max had to bring her in and was following her. But Max was kind of interested in her story and wanted to work with her, sort of a Commissioner Gordon Batman kind of relationship. And Max needed a partner who could kind of what would it be? Serve as a foil. And RM here had this brilliant idea that, well, hey, why don't we use Liam? We're not using him for anything else. And I think originally, oh dang it, weren't you even contemplating using him still as Mora's love interest early on? And didn't that, I know it got cut very early, but
it got cut super early. Well, I don't know. I mean, they make a great pair considering he hates her and she hates him. It's a great love-hate relationship.
Such a healthy relationship, yeah.
Healthy relationship. I'm gonna find this fucking piece of writing. I guess it was past 2016. Let me find 2017. When the fuck did I write this one? They would make a great pair. It's just
I mean, they'd make a pair.
they'd make a pair. They'd make an interesting pair.
That too.
But I don't know what I don't know what's gonna happen with Mora, so that's TBD.
Well,
Looks like some old fucking writing.
for now, Liam is Max's partner. He
Yeah.
is also, I mean, like Max, they're both after, they're supposed to bring in the Phoenix. He believes she's a menace. He's very combative. He is stubborn and proud, and
He's fucking
his
stubborn.
primary motivation is to his badge. He wants to stop criminals, and he doesn't see that as a shade of gray. He sees his job as one where it's black and white, and it seems like he enjoys that about it. And he's a little bit of a cliche. I mean, if Max's POV was still in here, I would emphatically be working on him. But as of now, he is the by the book cop, while Max is the I'll do whatever I need to do to get my answers kind of cop.
Yeah.
So that's kind of who he is now. Oh, I might have found something. What's this?
Did you find it? Because I'm reading scenes that I literally don't remember anymore. Oh wait, no, I'm in that one too. You found me.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this is the one I'm wondering if it is.
I'm wondering too, but this is from 2016.
Tanneline asked,
I don't even remember half of this stuff.
Is the chapter possibly on Scrib? So, Tanneline wants to know, who's Mora's love interest now?
Mora, she doesn't even love herself.
Mora's, really, that is the answer, though. Her love interest is herself. Mora's is a story of self-love, of learning to see herself as more than a monster, coming to terms with the things she's made. And I guess you could also say there is a paternal...
I found it!
Not a paternal. There is a maternal relationship between her and Sage as well, more of a familial relationship where she's...
Yeah.
Relationship-wise, Mora's relationship focus is on Sage. While...
Yeah,
and honestly, the same thing is true of Sage. That is to say, there isn't a romance subplot in this novel.
Probably in this entire series.
I have a feeling
Klaus and Emily.
I have a feeling there will end up being in book 2, or at least if I don't think it'll be a healthy romance, but I have a feeling romance is going to come up in Sage's life in book 2 because her character is there now. She's probably a new character, and what I would see there being a lot of potential for is now that she's in the spotlight and suddenly she's gone from everybody ignoring her to everybody sees her and is interested in her. I could see a very unhealthy relationship coming out of that.
Oh god, the poor girl.
Well, I mean, it's a very possible plot line to run with. I don't see, or if there is a positive relationship, it's not with an existing character now. It would be with a new character who would be developed in books 2 and 3.
True.
Right? I mean, correct me. I'm sorry. I'm kind of answering for you while you're looking. But
no, I found it, so don't worry. I can come back into the paste. Here we go. Share. How do I do a get shareable link?
That's the one.
Copy.
Paste that right on into the Twitch chat. Now, Tanneline's read this before, but I feel like every now and again it doesn't hurt to read this. So this was written how many years ago? Like 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
Well, this is from 2016, so...
4 years ago.
4 years ago. All right,
so,
where am I posting this?
In the Twitch chat.
Oh god, I have to get on Twitch then. Do I? Do I just pop up here?
Well... it's something to think about. Tanneline says, she feels it's a little disappointing because a character like that should be introduced earlier, even if the romance isn't there yet. That's a valid point. That's a
Wait,
valid
which
point.
character?
If there is a romance subplot character in book 2 or 3.
Oh, yeah.
But honestly, I think in this case it works. I think it'd be okay to introduce such a person. And there is a character who comes to mind that you could build vastly on. What was his name? He's in chapter 2. He's the cook, the fry cook.
Oh, Flynn.
Like
Oh, cute little
like
kid.
4 different people who've read that chapter have been like, I really like this guy. I hope he's a bigger character.
And
You could,
well, that and Beth. Beth is my favorite.
yeah. And actually, if you wanted to go, and this is something that I think you absolutely should consider, another possible character is Beth's daughter.
Oh yeah, Valerie.
Mm-hmm. I think that could be another very effective. Actually, that could be a terrific romance subplot with Sage. Frankly, given the parallels between them and which side they fall on in the struggle that we've talked about for book 2.
Wait, what?
I don't know if you remember, this came up like 6 appointments ago. We had talked about in book 2 possibly using Valerie as like
Oh
the
yeah.
critic of Sage. That could be a
Yeah.
terrific relationship for Sage.
Like romantic relationship?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So there are a few
I don't know much
characters.
about. Yeah, there are some that are there that can definitely be well because now in the second book, Sage will work with Max in the keep,
Mm-hmm.
so it'll kind of introduce her to Liam's
Hell,
character because they
Liam
weren't
too.
really
Liam's
introduced.
another option there.
Yeah,
So Liam, I could see being an unhealthy option.
I really just want to ship Klaus and Sage, but that's just my
I
opinion.
would
That
I
would
would
be
like to see
really
that.
bad.
That could be that's another option. That is absolutely another option. But also it's going to be depressing because
People
Klaus
would
is just going to
hate.
keep on living and living and living, and then Sage is going to die. And yeah, love triangles are
With
totally an option.
Emily.
Tanneline mentions make it a triangle. So in book 1, one of the major arcs, one of the major themes is self-love, about accepting oneself. Because all 3 of the characters, you have Sage, who feels ignored and feels like she's a failure and a piece of garbage. You have Mora, who feels like she's a monster and not worth the ground she walks on. She's kind of got a disassociation with herself. She sees herself as more of a weapon than a person. You have
Mhm.
Klaus, who tries to see himself as a good man, but increasingly starts to realize he's a hypocrite and a coward. All
Mhm.
3 of these characters come to terms with that over the course of the story and come to feel that self-love. So I feel that in book 2, something you could you've kind of opened the door to explore romance for these characters, don't you think? Now that they've kind of faced their demons of self-love.
I don't know, there's a lot of PTSD that's gonna be
Well, of
going
course.
on
And
there.
you'd be irresponsible as a writer if you didn't, twist that knife as much as you can.
I would definitely I can see Sage getting into unhealthy relationships,
Oh yeah.
unfortunately,
I mean,
if that's
book
the world that
2,
she finds herself in. I can also see Klaus doing that as well, because at the end of the day, he's really gonna he's the guilt he just wallows in his guilt,
mhm,
so he'll get into unhealthy and that's when Everine would be perfect for him, but
preying
unfortunately
on
that,
him.
huh?
She's just not that character anymore. Honestly, Evrene's arc, especially given what Sage did to her face and her body in the forest, I don't foresee much relationship happening in Evrene's future.
I don't think there was ever gonna be a relationship for her. Not
Not
now the
anymore.
way that she is now, yeah. But previously, she definitely did use seduction as
Right.
her means of. Now it's just pure power.
I
It's
was gonna
like
say you've
do
pretty
anything.
thoroughly robbed her of seduction. I mean, that's not to say she couldn't find love, but
I don't think she could.
she ain't pretty anymore. Not after what Sage did to her.
Well, Sage, I'm looking at the chat now. I have that up.
Hmm.
What Sage did was Everine was trying to get the ruby from Sage, and
An
Sage
item of
used
fire.
yeah, used the ruby against Everine when Everine had charmed herself to kind of take on this sand exterior that way, you know, arrows were flying towards her, they would just go through her versus
So it's not just the
actually harming
exterior.
her.
Her entire
Yeah, it
all
was
the way
everything,
through.
yeah.
She's made of sand.
She's made of sand. And Sage blasts her with some fire and turns her halfway to glass. Well, half her body to glass. So
When the sand
Irene
enchantment.
ain't looking pretty.
Hmm. So the beauty of that is once the sand enchantment wore off, the glass parts were no longer sand, so she kept the glass.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I've said this before. I've told RM this. That is such a comic book villain.
She really is. She's so much fun.
It would be such a grotesque look, though. She would look. God, I really want to
Well,
see artwork of that.
she's half frozen. Like her face is just like
Hmm.
yeah,
She
she can't move
probably
her arm.
eating would be difficult. I would imagine
She'd be
talking
so
is.
pissed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because she might not have been seductive or interested in romance, but she was, she looked like a human. She
Yeah.
was, you know, she could blend in society, and now she looks like a freak. She really looks like a monster.
Yeah, and she can't. I mean, you know, she'll can do some enchantments to help fix herself, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day, when she
I'd
wants to
imagine,
relax and take off her shoes, she's still made of glass.
yeah, I would
So.
imagine a lot of her internal organs were really
Oh,
messed
and she's
up.
missing. She's missing a hand because Julian snaps the glass from her hand.
I don't know about that. I might encourage you to work on that, or at least to
Oh no.
when he does it shouldn't just be like, oh, ha, got your hand. It's kind of
Oh.
it's a little too casual when he's just like, oh wow, she sure got you. Grabs hand, snaps hand off. Like there's no. I feel like there should be a
He
little
says to leave
more
it in.
intensity to that. I'm not
Oh well,
saying
yeah,
cut
he
it. I'm just
completes the
saying like it
scene,
shouldn't be like,
but
oh hey, give me that hand back. I need that.
see, classic Julian. It is, but Julian would just be like, "Haha, got your nose," and snaps her nose off. Like,
I mean, something I don't know. It doesn't feel very real the way it plays out right now. I think
I can fix it so she still leaves her hand, loses her hand,
I'm
or at least,
all for her
huh.
losing the hand, especially given. Don't you give her like a science like a freaking
In
syringe
the second book,
fingers?
when she has time to just, you know, chill out after everything, yeah, she'll come back and she'll look even freakier with some sort of prosthetic on there.
With her face partially glass, he really could do the got your nose.
He really, yeah, and he would do that, but I really can't give her like make her
No,
look like Voldemort, who's now with glass. Like,
no, no, please don't.
it would be somewhat appealing.
Yeah. I mean, this is. I one day really want to see artwork of post Sage Everine
Oh
because that's gonna
God.
be so cool to look at. I really am. I really want to see somebody look like this just to, you know, it would be cool to look at. Horrifying.
I know it definitely would be.
I hope that makes
If
it
I
onto your
could
cover
draw, I
art.
would try and do it.
I hope her face makes it onto book two's cover art. Honestly,
Here's the thing, like, I for my own books, this is my own taste, I just hate having people on the cover.
says the person whose copy of Blue
I
Ruin had a
know.
person on the cover.
I know, but I hated it. I was just like, "Meh."
Okay, well, could you hate the cover art for book two, but still put Evereen's face on it, please?
Right, it's gonna look like horror, it's not gonna look
That
like the
depends on
person.
how it's portrayed. I mean, it's dark fantasy. You want the
Yeah.
book. You don't want it to look like a romance cover. I mean,
That would be weird.
it should look a little
I honestly
dark.
don't know what I would want the cover. I'm also a very simplistic
Hmm.
person. Less is more. So the less busy things are and the less I have on there. But again, I have no idea like what exactly can be put on there.
Well,
That is
if we're
why I'm not making it.
if we're being honest, with you pursuing traditional publication, you'll probably not have to worry about that. You'll probably have people to handle that for you.
We'll
So,
see if I do the traditional route. I honest
yeah,
to God don't know.
if you, well, it's a big choice. It's a big choice, and it will
About
definitely
it.
shape what the future of your work will entail. If you
Right.
want to pursue full time writing, you'll definitely need to be marketing probably more than half the time you're working. A lot of your energies are going to go into marketing yourself, making ads, pushing your book, making sure that people find it. But if
I
you're
know.
comfortable doing that, and if you, better yet, have a talent for that, not only could you go the self publishing route, you should go self publishing. But
That's just a lot of effort.
yes.
Only because I would have to be writing the other 2 books, and then I also work full time, so
Hmm.
it's just like, "Bruh."
Well, it's a
Wow.
big choice, and you still have quite a ways until you have to
Oh, I
really
do.
make it. Um, and even
Yeah.
if you do go self publishing, I would still encourage you to think about having a hired agent.
I would need a lot of people to be hired because I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, you know what
Yeah, I'd
you could
have to quit my
always
day job.
become a streamer and start streaming your marketing attempts and stream your book. I'm joking because that's what I'm doing. I'm selling out.
I wouldn't know what to stream.
But
I'm very boring. I can educate people on oncology. That's about it.
well, here's some. If I can ask a question for our little Q and A,
Yeah.
how what is your process look like with writing? Like how much time do you put into writing weekly? How does your workflow go?
Well, I can't base it off of the last 3 months,
Right.
just because being crazy, owning a home, buying a house and job and everything like that. But typically, again, I write freakishly fast.
It's true.
That's accurate. Honestly, once I know exactly what I'm going to write, I'll do a quick outline, and my outlines are just literally incomplete sentences, pieces of dialogue. I get the bones of the scene down. That way I have something and I have sort of a roadmap to go off of. And then I put everything into complete sentences, and then that's when I start like really editing. I add in emotion, description, I start really playing in the sandbox and creating what I need for the
Mhm.
scene. I do a lot of editing before I post to my beta readers. Though for the last couple of chapters, I haven't really been editing. I've just been trying to get the chapters posted so I can get a feel for what I need to edit because they are such big chapters. Before I start editing them like crazy, I want to get some opinions on how I'm doing so far. But I do a lot of editing. And the biggest part of the editing, I think, is just adding in the character, the emotional aspect and the engagement and the character thoughts. And once I have that down, I feel like I'm pretty much set with the chapter. Honestly, I could do a chapter a day. I could do a bunch of outlines
Could and
in a
have.
day. Yeah, I think I've done a lot of outlines. The outlines are easy. You just put down, "Oh, blah 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 walks into the room and this is how she should be feeling and this is all the dialogue, this is the conversation and these are some thoughts that you have to put in." And then half the time I'm writing the outline, I wind up just actually writing the chapter to begin with. So I do write freakishly fast. And
What are
if I have a scene in mind that I want to write, I'll just quickly write that one out too.
what are your favorite scenes to write?
This is gonna sound so weird. So I hate writing any scene that requires a bunch of description. I hate writing
Really?
descriptions. I do. I hate writing descriptions, and although I've been told that that's my strong point, I hate writing very descriptive scenes. So, where's a really descriptive scene? Oh, so, like, when they're entering Hollow's forest, and it's really just a lot of describing of the forest, and the creepiness of it, and all the details for that. I hated writing that scene, because they're just full of descriptive.
Well, I feel like part of
I
that was because you hadn't
I did it
actually
10
been
times
in
before.
forests like that.
But I mean, any sort of anything that has really, really thick descriptions, I hate writing them. And I know my descriptions are awesome. My descriptions are awesome, but I don't know why I just hate writing them. My favorite scenes to write so far have been any sort of conversation between Mora and Sage. Those have been my favorite. They're just except for the last scene that I wrote with them because I think I wrote it like 10 times before I was like, okay. Maybe
That's
this is how this is gonna go.
and obviously we don't want to talk about some of the late scenes spoilers that you have
Yeah.
going on, but some of those scenes are really those would be tough, I feel like, for anybody to write. I've always
Yeah,
prided myself
they
on
were
dialogue,
hard.
for example, and I wouldn't know what to say there, like what people would like when you put people in a certain situation so far beyond the normal with so
Yeah.
much complicated emotion and layer going to it. I mean,
Well, that's the thing, I'm taking them both out, I'm pulling more from her introverted self, and I'm making Sage into this, very highly emotional character in the moment and kind of just not belligerent, but just hysterical. And it's like, they're both spinning in two different very spheres than they've ever done before. And just also trying to like do that scene organically. It's like, how does one that's my biggest thing because I hate watching movies and listening to characters talk, and it's like, well, that's not how people speak. So to take a very big thing that they need to talk about and make it seem like, okay, that's how a person would say it. I think that's gonna be my most difficult scene. I've gotten the base work for it, but that's a very difficult scene. But Mora and Sage conversations are my absolute favorite to write, and any scene with Julian in it, I love to write. That he's just so much fun.
for some people who've kind of been following this whole thing, uh, is there anyone in particular who you imagine Klaus, Julian, and Adrian looking like? I mean, most authors have a head canon where they kind of cast actors to play their characters. Do you have anyone who you've cast for some of these characters?
I do. And, yes, my characters definitely talk to me, and sometimes they talk to me a little too much, and then it just becomes a totally different scene, and it's like, "Oh, shit, this isn't what I was gonna write."
I always love those conversations when I wake up in the morning and I see, so I wrote this chapter and it didn't really go like I thought it would. Those are the mornings where I'm like,
So
I better get some coffee. All right, what happened?
it's like, "Oh, yeah, remember when I told you Maura was gonna be like this? Just kidding, this is how she's gonna be now."
You mean like the time here's one that we can talk about because it's not a super big spoiler. Like the time
Mhm.
Mora goes off to get one of the relics and she's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to go on my own, no Sage.
No Sage, no
Don't need
one
it.
at all.
Forget the entire like line of chapters that we had planned out and all these things that I wrote and yeah, no.
Not just not
It's
happening.
gone."
And that happens quite frequent or I think your favorites are when you're like, "Oh, we should do X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, "No, no, no, we're not doing X, Y, and Z," and about 2 weeks later, I'm like, So that X, Y, and Z. So I did it, and it works great.
My favorites are the ones when it's only 2 or 3 days. The ones where you,
Yeah, and I
and
come
I
through.
can tell it's coming because there'll usually be an entire day where you won't talk to me.
Well,
And,
no,
and then
I'll
like
just
the
be
next
like,
day I'll
"I'm
be like,
pondering."
yeah.
I'll be
Yep.
like, "Oh, in that one day where I wasn't speaking, I was writing it out and seeing how it would go." But as for characters, casting them wise, um, what it does sound like math. This is very mathematical. Um, casting wise, so Adrian, I found somebody else. It
You're
was
seeing somebody
originally
else? You've got a new
oh,
actor?
I did, and I can't remember who the fuck it was, but I was like, "Ooh, that would be Adrian."
It was
Oh wait, no,
Henry Cavill.
yeah, yeah, in The Witcher. I was like, "Ooh." There we go. So I kind of see him because I've never really seen him in a role like that before, and I was like, "Ooh, he pulls it off really, really well." Like,
Mhm.
I could really see him being Adrian. As for Julian, did we pick a Julian?
Mhm. Are you kidding me?
Who the fuck did we pick?
Not we, you. He was the first one you came at me like, "Oh my god, this is him. This is him." Everything about him is Tom.
Oh my god, I'm so stupid. Yeah, Tom Hiddleston, completely Julian, just
That's literally
100%.
how you sold the character to me.
I know, I know. I was like, "Wait, Julian is totally Tom Middleton, the mischievous way that he is and, just the charm and and, like, everything." And then Klaus, what's his name? Why don't I actually know his name?
Have you changed
But
it since the
the
last time you talked about it?
no, it's
Okay.
Vision, it's him.
Paul
Yeah.
Bettany.
Yes, him. Very just, you know in any movie I've seen him in, he's just been a very calm, collected, just very smooth
You haven't
kind
seen
of
the Da Vinci Code,
person.
have you?
I have not. But
Okay.
in every other movie that I've seen him in, he's just been like the perfect, just like very composed, very put together, um, just very smooth. That's how I see him. Mora, I've kind of been bouncing around between a lot of different actresses. I'll see someone that looks like her and I'll be like, "Ooh, that's Mora," but I don't I don't know. I know we were bouncing around the idea of, um, Brie Larson as Mora because she did
It,
when I saw her in a couple of movies, I was like, "Oh, she could really put on that, like, hard exterior." But I saw
it's
someone
hard
else.
for me to imagine her being angry enough or
That's
bitter
the
enough.
thing. That's the thing. I don't see her as a bitter person, so I feel like that's where I kind of get caught up in
But then
debating if
again,
she would
the best actresses and actors can, I mean,
can pull it
they can
off.
pull it off. They can pull whatever you need, whatever emotion. So,
And Sage, I really liked, the other Olsen sister for,
Elizabeth Olsen,
Scarlet Witch. Yes. She just had that when I saw her in Infinity War, she just had that emotional,
the youth.
um she had 1, she has the youth, 2, she has the looks, and then 3, she just had, that she had that emotional ability to because, I mean, Sage is a very emotional character. She has
Hmm.
the right emotion that I
She's
needed.
very childish in a lot of ways.
She is, and Sage is very immature in that way. Not immature in an annoying way, like, "Ugh, gross, she's, like, young and stupid," but immature in a way of because if I wrote a character like that, I would actually die. But
You did,
she is
Heidi.
very oh my yeah, but she's a lot of fun, and she's in a small dose. But, Sage is just immature in the way of everything like, she's not Mora, she's in a totally different sphere from Mora, and she's kind of naive to how this world works, and, she's very easily trusting of people, and she's finding her backbone. So I feel like Elizabeth Olsen could pull her off really well.
Mhm.
Um, what other characters were there? Wait,
Um, Max.
Max, I didn't. No, Heidi isn't out. Heidi is
Another one who's
now.
changed. Sort of.
I know. Heidi has changed.
Wait, yeah, she has. Right, didn't she used to be a freaking cop?
Yeah. So I think that's what she read, and now she's not.
I forgot about I can't visualize her as a
So
cop now.
So Heidi in the original, she was a cop and she was Mora's partner. Mora was a cop. She was an undercover cop. And Heidi was her partner, and Heidi was actually a double agent, and she was working with Adrian. And she kind of gave Mora up to Adrian. But now she has taken such a backseat. She's still the same personality, but she's Sage's roommate. She works with Adrian in the sense that she works in the club that Adrian owns. But she has absolutely no dog in any sort of fight, and she really is just an employee of Adrian without. Yeah, and Mora killed her.
There
Heidi
was
lived.
a
So.
there was one draft that you wrote. I don't remember which one. It was very early where you wanted to go out of your way to have everything Heidi did bite her in the ass and get
And
consecutively
everything.
worse. That
I
was
know,
so
and I did
funny.
do
It was
that,
good.
and it was oh, that poor child. But I mean, in one version, Mora killed her, in another version, Adrian killed her,
You
in
had
the
one where she
last
survived.
version right, in the last version that she was still a cop, Max wound up arresting her,
Yep, you were going to use her in the
and putting
sequel.
her on trial. Right. But now she's really just, um, she's just
Set
she's just
dressing.
Sage's yeah, she's just Sage's, roommate, and I like their conversations too. Their
Mhm.
conversations are really easy.
Though I
Um,
did recommend. I don't know if you remember. I think some of her behavior might not necessarily line up with what people in her employment do with clients.
True. Well, yeah, she sleeps with clients for money. Um,
Easy fix.
but
I would
I
just
think
have a hotel or a motel for that.
yeah, yeah. I think I've tweaked that a bit. I don't
I
know.
I
I think I'm
remember
making it
something got cut. I
tweak.
don't remember if I still had any. I haven't. It's been a while since I
There was
read that.
a there was a lot that got cut.
Mhm.
But yeah, so Heidi has completely changed too. She's not this malicious double agent person anymore. Now she's just Sage's
She's a Gen Z.
normalcy.
She's.
Yeah,
I mean,
she
yeah.
really is though. But she's a lot of fun to write too because she's totally different from Sage and their conversations flow
Now,
very easily.
something I saw Tanaline bring up earlier. She had observed that
Mm.
initially Adrian was this bigwig mob boss. He still kind of is, isn't he?
So he kind of is. He does dabble in the black market. He owns some clubs. Like he makes, I don't want to say honest money, but he does have a job other than like trying to rule the world. He
He's a.
understands the importance of having his fingers in a lot of different resources. So he's not much like I don't want to say he's not a mob boss, but his main focus is no longer that he's the kingpin of the black market, though he does dabble in
I
it.
would
Job.
assume too, getting into kind of some of how the Chicago mob worked. Probably a lot of people leave him alone because he regulates some of the black market instead of just free drugs and potions running
Yeah.
rampant on all the streets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And he's definitely into making sure that he has a lot of resources, a lot of people that can owe him favors. He's definitely into the numbers
He
of,
seems like a power broker, is what he
operating.
is.
Pretty much. That's the best way to describe him. But he still dabbles in the black market and does all those illegal things. Um,
I mean, in the last draft that I read, your story literally opened with some of his black market people
yeah.
closing up shop.
Well, yeah, so that's how Mora wound up finding him and trying to figure out what exactly he was doing. She went to one of his black market spots and they were closing up shop and talking about how he's not really dabbling in the black market anymore and he's dabbling in something else, which piqued her interest and was like, "Oh, what is he dabbling in? Oh shit, he's gonna make the philosopher's stone. Oh, this is a problem. I should probably do something."
Would you say he's kind of Iruhan's Elon Musk?
I feel like Elon Musk is like such a great person.
Socially
I
standing, I
think
mean. Socially, would you say he's like Elon Musk?
I don't think so.
He seems wealthy, he seems eccentric, and he seems like a household name.
He's definitely known, and he's especially known by the police. He's known by them for a multitude of things.
That's funny. Him getting called in. I'm sorry. There's a bit where when he gets arrested and he has to deal with that. Given that he's out of the black market, that's funny. That must be really frustrating for him.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I don't even have that scene anymore, which makes me sad,
I mean, I
but
would assume
yeah.
it's still happening. Oh man, I could. Tanneline mentioned Spader in Blacklist. I could
Mm.
100% see that guy play Adrian. In fact, I think I mentioned that when you first watched Age of Ultron. I think I remember mentioning that I felt like I could see that voice
Yeah.
for Adrian.
I definitely see Henry now. He just has that Henry definitely looks like Adrian, the Adrian that I had in my head.
Complete with the butt chin.
No, but, never really saw that for Adrian, but, like, the ruggedness, like, the very prominent features, just wow. I did not watch Blacklist, no. I still have, like, 3 more episodes of The Witcher to watch, I think.
Mm-hmm. Two.
Yeah. 2?
Two.
Oh
Yeah, did
god.
you hear they also pushed the release for that out to 2022 for season two?
Why?
You know why.
I can't I can't wait 2 years.
Yeah, well, you're gonna.
I can't wait 2 years. Well, now I can't watch the last 2 episodes
Yes, you
'cause
can.
no. But yeah, that's who I see for Adrian right now.
I'm trying to think. I've got any other questions I can prompt you with. Chat. Is there any other questions anyone has they want to ask? Is there anything you want to say that you just want to like riff on? I feel like that's. It looks like that's it from chat.
I think so.
All right. Well, in that case. Oh, thank you, Rin.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much. Oh, Tanneline's still on Spader.
So, yeah.
Um, well, thank you everyone for watching. RM, thank you very much for agreeing to stream this, and
Yeah.
I hope you got your money's worth here.
Yes, I think I did.
Uh, maybe we'll have you back sometime to do this again, or maybe we'll just keep the chat.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well,
I had
thank you to the rest of you. I'm going to be ending my stream here. I may be live again later tonight with my usual stuff. We'll see. But you know the usual mediums to keep an eye on for that. If anybody was interested in this and wants to see more in the future, I have a Twitter, which is linked down there, that I always post in when I'm going live with games or if I'm doing this or that. If there are future coaching sessions that I stream, that is where I will announce them, as well as my Discord server down below. So, with that said, thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you, well, whenever the next time is. Bye, everyone.
Oh, all right.